Chapter 2684. When Hosea heard this, she had to admit that she was quite pleased. When Yiqian said that her father needed to come to the 21st floor of the hotel to collect something and needed the hotel staff to open the door, Hosea, who was at home with his wife, immediately drove over personally. Xia Yiwei also came along. Xia Yiwei didn't know that Yiqian had found her biological father. When the couple arrived at the hotel and saw Yiqian's father, they were shocked by his military rank. Major General. Yiqian's father was a major general in the military. Let's wait patiently. I have people watching outside. If there's any movement, we'll know. Honey, Yiqian's father just introduced him as a Fu. I noticed that this Major General Fu has an extraordinary bearing and has the aura of the capital. The Fu family. Is there a family with the surname Fu in the capital? I've looked carefully, but there isn't a family with the surname Fu. Hosea's main point was to know Father Fu's background. No, but if you want to know, you can ask Xiao Yi later. She explained to us how the father and daughter met. She treats us as family. If you ask, she'll probably tell you. Xia Yiwei, who was wearing a loose maternity dress, leaned against the chaise lounge and ate fruits prepared by the hotel. Her beautiful eyes were full of smiles. I really didn't expect that Xiaoya would find her biological father and that he would be a major general. In this way, Xiaoya would have the support of her family. Old six, you won't be able to do as you please in the future. Xia Yiwei had always taken pity on Yiqian. When she saw Father Fu today, she was happy for Yiqian from the bottom of her heart. Hosea thought about it and waved her hand with a smile. Let's not ask. We'll find out sooner or later. She raised her hand to look at her watch. It's almost 5 p.m. Let's invite Yiqian's father to dinner later. Father Fu declined Hosea's invitation with a smile. He took his late wife's diary and boarded the train to Anyang. He arrived at Shuku village the next day. Yixin Fan was buried in the mountains behind his hometown. Father Fu, who had changed into casual clothes, entered the village early in the morning and left about half an hour later. Father Fu did not disturb the villagers in the village. Before Father Fu returned to the missile base, he went to the military headquarters to meet with Commander-in-Chief Xia, who then led him to the military commission. On this day, Father Fu didn't come out of the military commission until 7 in the evening. This case involves a smuggling case from more than 20 years ago. Back then, it wasn't cleaned up cleanly. Now, there are still several nails nailed in the case. Now, it's far from enough to have evidence from more than 20 years ago. We need new evidence. Therefore, the entire investigation is quite slow. 1 or 2 years would be considered short. In the car, Commander-in-Chief Xia spoke to Father Fu with a gloomy face. Worker Fu, if you come forward, the pressure on the military commission will increase. Their investigation will speed up, but Worker Fu, you have to be mentally prepared. Even if it speeds up, it won't be much faster. Father Fu, who already had a certain understanding of the situation, was able to keep his composure. When he heard this, he nodded gently and said, "My daughter has waited for more than 10 years. It's not a big deal for me to wait 2 or 3 years. I saw the file just now. It's indeed difficult. I understand. As long as the military commission continues to investigate and treats my late wife's case as a major military matter, I can accept the length of the investigation. Don't worry. I'm the one who reported the death of martyr's son, Xiueqing, to the military commission. It's definitely a major military matter. It's getting late. If Worker Fu has nothing else, why don't you have dinner with me?" Now that they were done with the business, it was time to get in touch with their future in-laws. Chapter 2685. Yiqian knew that Commander-in-Chief Xia had dinner with Father Fu half a month ago. At that time, Father Fu had already returned to the base. At the same time, he received the letter that Yiqian had sent a long time ago. Although the father and daughter had already acknowledged each other, Father Fu was still very excited when he received his daughter's letter. He immediately replied. Although Commander-in-Chief Xia holds an important position, he is humble and knowledgeable. He did not eat much during the 3 hours of dinner, and we chatted happily the entire time. A son is like his father. From this, I can see the character of my son's captain. He must be humble and courteous and treat people seriously. It is my son's fortune to have such a captain. Furthermore, my son's captain has been helping my son for a long time. From this, I can see that his character is similar to his father's, and he has Master Xia's general demeanor. From my observations, this child is indeed not bad. My son needs to be humble and learn from others. He must not be rash, and he must not be arrogant because of his outstanding ability. You must know that there is always someone better than you. He must be humble and prudent. He must be generous and not be calculative. Only then will he be able to go further. I have fully understood the matter regarding your mother. Apart from the hatred in my heart, I also know that I must be cautious at all times. Everything needs to be planned step by step, and I must not act rashly. The military commission already knows of my relationship with my son. The military commission has already promised me that they will do their best to resolve this matter. However, after I checked the case files, I was greatly shocked. Although we do not know who the mastermind is, the list of people listed by the military commission is frightening. The old case of more than 20 years ago caused a sensation at the time. Fortunately, our country has been in the midst of reform and opening up for more than 20 years. Military matters are classified, and no news media dares to report them. There is also no such thing as the internet. Although the scope of this case is wide, it was ultimately dealt with in secret. The case of more than 20 years ago was not completely resolved. There are still some loose ends. Now that it has become a trend, I understand the concerns of the military. In the face of personal affairs and national conditions, my son, I have let your mother and you down. Even now, I still choose the national conditions. Father doesn't ask for your forgiveness, but for your understanding. Yi Qian sat alone in the library, carefully reading Father Fu's reply letter. In the letter, he mentioned that he had received her first letter and was very happy. He hoped that they would be able to write to each other often in the future. Below, she mentioned what Father Fu had done after returning to the capital and who he had met. He watched as Father Fu and Commander-in-Chief Xia had dinner together. Although there was a 12-year age gap between them, it did not affect their conversation at all. From ancient times to the present, they quoted from classics and interspersed a few elegant jokes. 3 hours of dinner had passed without them noticing. When Yi Qian saw this, he vaguely understood Commander-in-Chief Xia's intentions. When he saw a string of words such as "my son is captain," Yi Qian felt his face burning up. It seemed that not only did Commander-in-Chief Xia not drag Captain Xia down this time, he must have inadvertently said a bunch of good things about Captain Xia. That was why Father Fu had said that his son resembled his father. Although Commander-in-Chief Xia would usually say a few bad things about Captain Xia in front of her, when it came to critical times, there was no father more qualified than Commander-in-Chief Xia. Yi Qian, who was in the front and in the middle, both had smiles in their eyes when they read this. But as he read on, the smiles in his eyes gradually disappeared. Even his expression became a little cold. In the face of personal affairs and the country, as a soldier, Father Fu still chose the country. Then, the people in the file that the military commission had shown Father Fu had a wide range of influence. Otherwise, it would not have written, "I was also shocked." Chapter 2686. There was no need for forgiveness. The military commission had asked her to come to the capital for a talk during the new year. At that time, she had already realized that her mother's death was not a small matter. When Yi Qian wrote back, he clearly expressed his thoughts. At the same time, he told Father Fu that time was not a problem. As long as we find out who the real mastermind is and let the mastermind receive the punishment he deserves, that would be enough for her. Su Wan, who was sitting across from Yi Jing, saw that Yi Qian's face was cold as he read the letter. She couldn't help but gently tug on Yi Jing's sleeve. When Yi Jing lifted her head from the book, Su Wan pouted and motioned for Yi Jing to look at Yi Qian. Who doesn't have some worries? Don't look. Hurry up and catch up on your cultural studies. Your physical fitness has improved, but your military theory foundation is still not up to standard. Hurry up. The midterm physical fitness test and cultural studies had ended 10 days ago. Su Wen's physical fitness test had passed by a hair's breadth, but it was still a long way from good. Her cultural studies were also lagging behind. The main thing was that she had to focus on improving her physical fitness in the early stages, which delayed her cultural studies. However, Suwon had a good foundation. She could improve after cramming for a while. However, Suwon still had to take care of her cultural studies and improve her physical fitness. It was still quite difficult for her. In Yi Qian's words, she wasn't used to it yet. Once she got used to the high-intensity training and high-pressure studies, she didn't feel that it was too tiring. After He Jing's words, Suwon calmed down. After Yi Qian finished writing his reply, the coldness on his face dissipated. When it came to personal matters and national conditions, a soldier would always choose the latter. As a soldier herself, she understood her father's helplessness. That kind of deep helplessness. You are a soldier, and I'm also a soldier. We both know what a soldier should do. So, Dad, you don't have to blame yourself. I support your choice. When Father Fu received the letter and saw this paragraph, he had already stayed up for 2 consecutive nights. Even though his eyes were bloodshot like spider webs, there was still a deep smile in his eyes. Mr. Fu, you seem to be in a good mood recently. Is something good about to happen? The engineers who walked out of the experimental base laughed and asked Father Fu. They had just overcome a difficult problem that had troubled them for nearly 3 months. At this moment, everyone had a smile on their faces, and even the way they talked was much more casual. Father Fu was also very strict in the base. He was a person who made the engineers feel apprehensive. Other than the colleagues who were close to him who were not very afraid of him, the rest of the engineers and technicians were somewhat afraid of their chief engineer. After hearing what he said, the technicians couldn't help but look at Father Fu. They couldn't tell that he was in a good mood. As usual, he was so serious that even a glance from him would make their hearts beat wildly. Father Fu received the letter from the duty room. After reading the letter while walking, he carefully folded the letter and put it in his pocket. He replied to his colleague, "There is good news, but I can't tell you. Rest early and have a good sleep. When the technology is synthesized, we will have to test it." Is there a need to hide good news? Good. You should rest early too. We have been cooped up in the lab for a month. I need to run a few laps outside to loosen up my muscles. The senior colonel stretched his waist and swung his arms. There was an indescribable tiredness on his face. After being in the lab for a month, everyone in the lab was extremely nervous. Because there was a very small deviation in the last parameter, everyone stayed up for 48 hours. Today, all the parameters were passed. After not seeing daylight for a month, they could finally come out and bask in the sun and feel the dry wind of the Great Northwest. Chapter 2687. Father Fu, who had been in the laboratory for an entire month, sighed softly when he saw the date on the letter. His daughter had sent the letter in the middle of May. It was already the end of June when he received it. The end of June. The college entrance examination for this century was just a few days away. It was the time when success or failure would be determined after decades of hard work. During this month, Yi Qian had been waiting for Father Fu's letter while intensifying her training. She still remembered that Xia Jinyuan had told her that after the summer vacation, she had to immediately gather all the Special Forces soldiers who were going overseas for competitions to begin training. As graduation season approached, it was common to see fourth-year students on campus wrapping bags for 1 or 2 students and sending them to the train station together. Yi Qian and the others often saw the fourth-year students taking pictures on campus. At the same time, they silently took off their armbands and put on new armbands. When they put on their new armbands, it was time to say goodbye to their alma mater. We're already in our 2nd year. Next will be our 3rd year, then our 4th year. And then we'll go our separate ways. How can time pass so quickly? Suwon looked at the departing backs of the 4th-year students, her eyes a little red. Happiness and separation were the 2 emotions that drove their emotions the most. Seeing the separation, even Yi Qian's heart was filled with sorrow. It's much faster than the 3rd year of high school. It felt like the 3rd year of high school was very difficult, but the 4th year of university, why does it feel so fast? Look, we were still new students last year, but after the college entrance examination today, we're already 2nd-year students. He Jing also sighed softly especially when the three of them walked past a few fourth-year students who were hugging each other and crying softly. The three of them were already in low spirits. "What are you crying for? We're men. Men bleed, not tears. Don't cry, don't cry. Don't you see the three beautiful students looking at us?" A fourth-year senior who had been at the school for 4 years rudely wiped away the tears at the corners of his eyes. At the same time, he did not forget to grin at Yi Qian and the others. On the other side, a neatly dressed cadet from the barracks walked over in an orderly manner. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. They walked over the asphalt road that the fourth-year cadets had to walk every day, but they might not walk it again in the future. When they walked to the front of a few fourth-year students who were hugging each other and standing apart, the leader of the students shouted, "Attention!" Everyone in the camp immediately stood at attention. "Turn right." Whoosh! They turned to the right in an orderly manner, and the team was in a straight line. Yi Qian suddenly realized something and immediately said to the 2 people beside him, "Attention! Turn right." The 3 of them moved quickly and turned to the right, facing the group of fourth-year students who were running in different directions. "Salute!" The leader of the cadets shouted in an imposing manner. Following that, all the cadets in the battalion, including Yi Qian and the other 2 who had obeyed the command, saluted the fourth-year cadets. "Goodbye, fourth-year students. Goodbye, fourth-year senior brother. We've seen you standing motionless under the scorching sun, training in military posture. The instructor told us very seriously that you are the ranking schools we study. We've seen you crawl and roll in the mud and persevere in training. The instructor told us very seriously that this is the tempering of willpower. You are our role models. We've seen you talk in the middle of the night. We've seen you fight valiantly on the battlefield. We've seen you laugh and talk. We've seen you go through ups and downs. Now that we're parting, the mountains are high and the water is far away. You can roam freely. Perhaps we'll never meet again." Chapter 2688. We'll never forget the shock you brought to our junior brothers and sisters. We'll always remember your heroic and brave figures. Seeing this, the seniors who were about to leave the military academy held back their tears. They saluted the juniors who saluted them, and the 3 juniors who were about to become sophomores. After the ceremony, the third-year cadets once again strode out in an orderly manner. Meanwhile, the fourth-year cadets carried their luggage and were escorted out of the military academy by their comrades who had chased after them to send them off. The National College entrance examination was coming, and so was the graduation season. Yi Qian couldn't forget this scene even after a week, because it would become a scene she had to experience in the future. Father Fu's reply came soon. Yi Qian knew that Father Fu had been in the laboratory for a whole month. Next was the final stage of the test. Once it was successful, China's maritime air defense missile would have a new general. At the same time, Father Fu mentioned that 1 letter a month was considered frequent, and 1 letter a few months was considered normal. Later, Yi Qian didn't receive any reply from Father Fu throughout the whole semester of her freshman year. At this time, Yi Qian was packing her luggage and preparing to go to Zhangchuan to complete the assembly. At the same time, a batch of missiles for ship platforms in the Northwest Missile Base were secretly sent to China's maritime forces in the southernmost part of the country for testing on the sea. Although the freshman year had ended, the vacation for commanders had always been strict. After the exam, all the freshmen were sent to the Army for 20 days of training before the results were out. There were only 4 weeks of vacation, but 20 days of training had been taken up. When many students received the notice, they almost cried when they went back to their dormitories to pack their luggage. Hurry up, hurry up. When the bus leaves, do you still want to walk to the Army on your own? Take a quilt and a cup with you. When you get there, there's only a hard bed for you. There's nothing else. Take inventory of all the daily necessities. Bring your own towels. On the day of the exam, the dormitory of the freshmen was bustling with noise and excitement. After a year of military academy life, these scholars who used to be gentle and refined had swept away the weak and gentle demeanor they had before they started studying. Every single one of them had become extremely masculine. Even Song Jiqiu, who looked gentle, was tanned into a manly man. Her Her skin was tanned all over, except for the part where she wore underwear, and the rest of her skin was tanned. Therefore, every time the white-skinned boys took a shower, they would rather wear underwear than be seen naked by their comrades. It was too embarrassing. The freshmen were busy, and so were the sophomores and juniors. Except for the seniors who stayed in graduate school to study to get a doctorate degree, the rest of them had gone to work. Yi-Jian had already packed her backpack neatly and slung it over her shoulder. She then put the slightly bulky backpack on her shoulders and said to her roommates who were still packing their backpacks, "Guys, I'll make a move first. I won't be accompanying you to the training." "To you." Yi-Jian saluted his two roommates and comrades in arms, then opened the door and strode out. "That's right. I'm training separately from you, so I'll see you at school." Su-Won, who was slow to react, didn't even ask for the reason. Seeing Yi-Jian open the door and leave, she hurriedly chased after him. "Why didn't you train with us? Where are you training?" "I don't know where to go either. Go back and pack your luggage. There's not much time left." Yi-Jian didn't look back as he walked down the stairs. "Where should I train?" "Go train where Captain Xia is." Chapter 2689. Yi-Jian did not train with the freshmen. Other than the instructors, only Su-Won and He-Jing knew about this. The two of them knew, but they kept it a secret. When some of the students in the class saw that Yi-Jian did not say anything, He-Jing smiled and replied that he was in another car. After that, no one asked any further questions. By the time all the students arrived at the base, Yi-Jian had just gotten off the plane. The training took place deep in the jungles of Tibet. Other than helicopters, there were no other means of transportation. The comrades of the Snowfield Brigade and the Storm Triamphibious Assault Team had been waiting for Yi-Jian for a long time. Everyone was still calculating the date of Yi-Jian's exam, the date of his exam, and the estimated time he would arrive. On this day, the T6 combatant ran over to look for the brigade leader. K7 pointed to the sky and said calmly, "He left 2 hours ago." "He left? Fuck. Why didn't anyone tell me?" The T6 combatant was dumbfounded. He had gotten up and ran over here without even taking a bath in his morning pee. But in the end, the person he had arranged to meet had actually left. At 4:30 in the morning, the two special forces teams that had camped out in some forest for the night started a new day of training. When the T6 combatant, who had arranged to meet up with Yi-Jian, saw that he had been stood up, he pulled a long face. "I'll definitely settle the score with him when I get back. We made an appointment last night, but he actually went back on his word and didn't even say goodbye when he left." The T6 combatant, who only wanted to find out more about Jiasin from Yi-Jian, kicked a small rock covered in moss and sent it flying. He gritted his teeth so hard that his teeth were chattering. K7 maintained an expressionless expression and replied to his comrade in a flat voice, "If it were me, I'd definitely leave you behind too. Why are you getting involved when the two of them are meeting?" The T6 combatant was at a loss for words. There was nothing he could do about it. He felt that K7 was right. Why should he get involved when the two of them were meeting? Even if he wanted to know more about Jiasin, well, he would wait for Qingyao to come over first. Seeing that his comrade had shut up in embarrassment, K7 pointed to the forest and said, "Let's go and see if there's anything to eat." Last night, he set up a small trap. He didn't know if there were any rabbits, pheasants, or other small animals that fell into it. "I want to eat rabbit meat. Just catch a rabbit." T6 wiped the corner of his mouth and left happily with K7. After a few months of continuous training, the two teams of special forces only received supplies once a month. When the helicopters arrived at the designated location, they would drop a pitiful amount of cooked food, as well as medical supplies. The special forces did not think of ways to fill their stomachs and relied on the food dropped by the helicopters. They had to be prepared to starve. According to Q King's special training, they didn't have any supplies for a month and had to rely on themselves. The Major General considered that they had too much time and had a few months of special training. In order not to affect July's competition, he decided to airdrop them once a month. Even so, Q King felt that he had invested too much. In front of them, G3 and Devil, who had gone to the airdrop site to collect their packages, returned. They high-fived each other and went about their own business. The pustules on a mermaid's leg are getting bigger and bigger. Make a cut later and squeeze out all the pus. If you drag this out, you might hurt the mermaid's bones. G3 whispered to Devilly Genian about the wound on the mermaid's leg. After being bitten by a poisonous mosquito, drenched in the rain, and soaked in water for a few hours, the bite area was red and swollen. It had already turned into pus by tonight and had to be squeezed out completely. It was impossible for her to withdraw from the training with such a small injury, and it was even more impossible for her to be moved onto the helicopter and sent to the hospital. Chapter 2690. Every time the helicopter arrived, the airdrop crew and the Special Forces soldiers in training were not allowed to touch each other. After the airdrop, the Special Forces soldiers would only appear after the helicopter left, so it was impossible for them to meet each other. Xia Jinyuan was going to pick up Yi Qian and bring him into the mountains. Otherwise, he would not have met with the airdrop crew. With a thick layer of pain on his face, only his eagle-like eyes could be seen. He boarded the helicopter and went to pick up Yi Qian. The soldiers in charge of the airdrop did not dare to talk to the soldiers who were no different from savages. They sat on the side obediently and did not even glance at him. This person was too frightening. His entire body was filled with murderous intent. When he used one arm to climb up the lift rope, his gaze swept past his face. It really felt like he was being swept by a sharp blade. He couldn't help but touch his neck to see if there was a bloody wound on his neck from his gaze. There was no blood on his neck, but the murderous intent on his body made the entire cabin seem particularly oppressive. The air became a transparent wall, separating the savage-like soldiers from the clean soldiers. His aura was so strong that he did not dare to speak. The two soldiers in charge of the airdrop maintained the most standard sitting posture, trying to resist the murderous intent on Xia Jinyuan and keep their back straight. Xia Jinyuan did not know that he was affecting the two soldiers. After he came up, he nodded at them and closed his eyes to rest. It was not convenient for him to speak. His throat was burning, and it hurt to speak. Coupled with the smell on his body, he was not in the mood to speak. The helicopter left the forest and flew over Sichuan, a scenic spot that was very famous in the country and even attracted countless foreign tourists. After another hour of ascension, they arrived at the helicopter airport. The helicopter airport was under the management of the Forest Armed Police. Yi Qian would take the helicopter here to meet with his comrades. When Xia Jinyuan arrived at the airport, he grabbed a backpack and jumped off the helicopter. He walked straight to the place where the Forest-Armed Police washed up and washed off the smell of sweat on his body. Xia Jinyuan finally felt that his body was fragrant after he rubbed half of the small portable soap. Just now, when he sat in the helicopter, he almost fainted from the smell. The Zhanchuan forest was rainy and sunny. The group of rough men didn't take shelter from the rain. They trained while sweating, so they took a shower in the rain. But he didn't dare to use any soap for fear of leaving too much smell. Although this was a forest, it was also a paradise for drug traffickers and poachers. They had been in the mountains for a few months and had helped the forest police and public security officers catch 3 waves of criminals. Bathing with soap had become a luxury. Xia Jinyuan went straight to the bathhouse. The political commissar of the Forest Armed Police heard the news and came over with toiletries and Chinese food. He arrived just in time for the armed police to have lunch. Xia Jinyuan, who was taking a shower inside, did not know that the political commissar of the detachment was waiting outside. After changing his clothes and reapplying camouflage paint on his face, he walked out refreshed. The political commissar of the detachment had already waited until the food was cold. "Thank you for your hard work. Quick, let's eat first." The political commissar of the detachment knew that there was a troop training in the depths of the mountains because they had been responsible for the delivery of supplies. They had sent supplies 4 times, but they had not met anyone once. Now that they finally saw a living person, the political commissar welcomed them warmly. Chapter 2691. Looking at the soldier in front of him who had disguised himself with oil paint, the political commissar looked at him and finally looked at his armband. He was also an ordinary soldier, not even a frontline combat unit. He was not as scary as the soldier's report just now, saying that even his eyes could kill. At least he did not feel any murderous intent. He was clearly a very ordinary soldier of the land forces who had entered the mountains for training. After taking a shower, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who did not smell of sweat and felt much more relaxed, had already restrained his murderous intent. He looked at the military rank of the other party and, according to the other party's tone, he knew that it was the political commissar. Without any courtesy, he took the stainless steel four-compartment plate used by the army and smiled at the political commissar of the Forest Armed Police Detachment. Sorry to trouble you. He did not use his toiletries, but he ate Chinese food instead. Although the food was cold, this was the first time in months that Lieutenant Colonel Xia had a full meal. What did he usually eat? Raw meat, water, grass roots, wild fruits, non-toxic mushrooms, and other edible and easily found food that could replenish protein and physical strength, regardless of the type, just to fill his stomach and not starve to death. The political commissar laughed. Don't be so polite. It's what I should do. Your long-term training in batches should be ending soon. It's been several months. He thought that these few months, the soldiers in the same unit would undergo long-term survival training in batches. In ordinary troops, long-term survival training would indeed be carried out in batches to make it easier to manage. Xia Jinyuan knew that he had misunderstood, but he did not explain. Instead, he went along with his words. There are still 2 batches left. Everything will be over once they're done. It's not easy to enter the mountains. There are all kinds of ferocious beasts in the depths of Zhangchuan Mountains. Even wild wolves will run over. You have to be careful. If there's any situation, you can send a distress signal to us at any time. The political commissar of the Forest Armed Police Detachment did not expect that the troops who entered the mountains for special training were always the same few. Just like the armed police, they also patrolled the mountains in groups and returned about half a month to 20 days later. They did not eat or drink in the mountains for special training for a few months, so they did not think in that direction at all. Xia Jinyuan nodded repeatedly. He was very polite and did not let the political commissar feel any so-called murderous intent. The political commissar said a few more words and then left. Xia Jinyuan took the plate to the canteen and did not ask the armed police to receive him. He stood outside the airport and waited for Yi Qian to come. As for the T6 combatants who had made an appointment with him last night but did not follow him, however, he had already forgotten about it. Xia Jinyuan lowered his training cap and found a shady place to rest. When he woke up, it was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He slept from 12:40 p.m. to 4 p.m., which showed how hard the special training in the past few months had been. Yi Qian rushed over from Xiang City. First he took the plane, then he took the bus. After going around in circles until 11 o'clock in the evening, he finally arrived outside the Forest Armed Police helicopter airport. The moment she jumped out of the car to thank the soldier, she felt a burning gaze coming from her left. When Yi Qian looked up, her heart couldn't help but race. She seemed to have guessed who this scorching gaze belonged to. A tall and slender figure walked out of the darkness and walked step by step to where the light was shining. He raised his head and looked over with a sharp gaze and a faint smile. His thin lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Although it was silent, Yi Qian already knew what he said. "Welcome back to the team, Qing Miao," he said. Chapter 2692. Yi Qian smiled. Under the light, her dark eyes seemed to have locked onto the brightest stars in the sky. Only the figure of the man standing in front of her existed in the dazzling light. She was here again. She could train with him again. They could leave early in the morning and return at night. They could share weal and woe together. They could overcome obstacles together. Xia Jinyuan walked over and saw the girl standing in the light. When her dark and bright eyes saw his figure, they suddenly burst into a dazzling light. In that light, there was only his figure. Xia Jinyuan suddenly felt like he was her entire world. It made his heart surge like a raging wave that could drown him. But he was willing to be drowned. Yi Qian also walked over and stood in front of him. With her backpack on her back, she stood at attention and saluted. "Qing Miao is here to report for duty. Please give your orders." Yi Qian said in a low but powerful voice with the guards in front of them and no one else around. Head to the training ground immediately. Xia Jinyuan returned the salute. Although there was a smile in his eyes, he did not let it show on his face. She knew that he was happy that she was here. There was no need for others to know. Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and looked at her with a gentle gaze. Yi Qian looked up at him with a smile in her eyes. They did not communicate much, but the affection in her eyes was more than 1,000 words. At night, the helicopter took off again and headed towards the depths of the mountain. It was a little long enough for Yi Qian to have a good night's sleep. If you have anything to say, we can talk during the break tomorrow. Rest well now. I'll call you when we arrive. When they got on the helicopter, Xia Jinyuan leaned over to Yi Qian's ear and said, "We gather at 4:30 in the morning and finish at 7 o'clock in the evening. Little Fox, you have to be mentally prepared. The training this time is a little special. Gather at 4:30 in the morning and finish at 7 o'clock in the evening." Yi Qian, whose ears were burning from his hot breath, turned his head slightly and moved away from Xia Jinyuan. Then he smiled and said, "Last year's training with my brother was the same. We both gathered at 4:30 in the morning and finished at 7 o'clock in the evening. Although the time is the same, the content of our training is different." Colonel Xia, who saw her small movements, curved his thin lips slightly. He quietly closed the distance between them and whispered in her ear again, "It will definitely be different from your previous training. It will be more exciting and challenging. So be it." His thin lips brushed past Yi Jian's small earlobe intentionally. This action was purely intentional. Yi Jian, on the other hand, felt awkward. She secretly reached out and pinched his arm muscles. "Don't try anything funny. Sit properly. If you come to my side, my entire body will be powerless." "How can I sit properly?" "All right." Lieutenant Colonel Xia started to act shamelessly again. Even his words were so shameless, but his tone was especially sincere. Although he was acting shamelessly, it didn't feel obscene at all. Yi Jian felt that she should have pinched him harder just now. If she pinched him too lightly, it wouldn't have been enough to make him shut up. "Is it because of my presence during tomorrow's training? Will you be weak all over and need me to drag you along? This guy, he's really seizing the opportunity to take advantage of me. Let me kiss you. I'll have energy tomorrow. I'll have endless energy." They had only met for a few months, and in 4 hours, they would have to face his brother-in-law at all times. It would be impossible for him to touch Little Fox's hand or steal a kiss. Chapter 2693. Since he hadn't met his brother-in-law yet, it was better to seize the time. Yi Qian glared at him and raised his hand to cover the side of his face that was close to his, rejecting his request with his actions. But who was Lieutenant Colonel Xia? If he wanted to do something, and it was such an important matter, he had to succeed. Even though Yi Qian raised his hand to cover his face, Xia Jinyuan's eyes flashed with a mischievous smile. He suddenly leaned forward and planted a firm kiss on Yi Qian's lips. His movements were swift. Their lips only touched for a brief moment before he immediately pulled away. It was so fast that Yi Qian only felt a slight warmth and softness on his lips before he sat up straight. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who had gotten rid of his worries, was elated. He smacked his lips in satisfaction. Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wasn't angry at being secretly kissed. They had been apart from each other for about 60 days from May to July. Kissing was indeed a common thing between boyfriends and girlfriends. As for her and Captain Xia, they only kissed a few times throughout the year. "I have to seize the time. My brother-in-law is holding the fort. How could he allow me to take advantage of his sister? Moreover, this brother-in-law of mine isn't someone to be trifled with. I was afraid that if I held your hand, I would have to pay the price of a broken rib." Lieutenant Colonel Xia said, with a melancholy expression. There was even a hint of sadness in his voice. With the devil watching, what he said wasn't impossible. Yi Qian blinked when he heard this. When he wasn't paying attention, he heavily kissed his handsome face that was covered in oil paint. He wiped his mouth and said, "You kissed me until my mouth is full of oil paint. It's simple. When we descend, I'll wash the oil paint clean and let you kiss me. I promise there won't be any oil paint smell. Captain Xia, you can rest now. Stop dreaming unrealistic dreams. You were the one who said that I'll kiss you until your mouth is full of oil paint. Since that's the case, I must make it up to you with a kiss that doesn't smell like oil paint. Yi Jian remained silent. 12 o'clock in the morning was the best time to fall asleep. She did not answer. Xia Jinyuan, who had been smiling deeply, held her hand gently and stroked it with his slender fingers. You're so soft-hearted. I only said a little, and you're already soft-hearted. He just wanted to kiss her, even if it was just a light kiss. Yi Qian, whose lips were curled up, finally fell asleep on his shoulder. Her eyes were relaxed, like a new moon in the sky. Her face was so tranquil that Xia Jinyuan didn't want to fall asleep. He just wanted to look at her. However, they had to sleep. They still had nearly 20 days of unusual training ahead of them, so they had to sleep well. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the helicopter arrived 3 kilometers away from the destination. Xia Jinyuan fastened the rope, crossed his legs, and slid down with his combat gloves. The entire rope was pulled into a straight line, and he landed in the blink of an eye. Yi Qian came down next. His movements were just as nimble, and in the blink of an eye, his feet touched the ground. He used the red light of the flashlight to flash 3 times, and the helicopter rose. He then turned around and quickly left their line of sight. Can you give me your hand now? There were only the 2 of them around. Colonel Xia took off his combat gloves and extended his hand to Yi Qian with a smile. We can go back hand in hand. The 3-kilometer journey will take 20 minutes, so we can hold hands for 20 minutes. Even holding hands was a race against time. Yi Qian did not refuse this time. Not only did she not refuse, but when she extended her hand, she suddenly changed her path and wrapped her arm around his neck. Then, she threw herself onto him. Chapter 2694. She pounced on Xia Jinyuan without any preparation. The landing point was another slope. She stepped on it with one foot, then down with the other, then turned sideways and reached out to Yi Qian. As a result, Yi Qian pounced on Xia Jinyuan all of a sudden and almost made him fall back. Fortunately, his lower body was stable enough. He leaned back and took half a step back. At the same time, he forcefully wrapped one arm around the slender waist of his lover, who was passionate when no one was around, and kissed her passionately. Only a kiss of lips and teeth could be considered a real kiss. Those light touches just now could not be considered kisses. Yi Qian was much bolder and more proactive than before. This was definitely a surprise for Xia Jinyuan. He liked Yi Jian's initiative, and he also liked to see that she had the same desire for him. It was the most primitive and natural desire. He wanted to have her, and she wanted to have him too. In the eyes of outsiders, Xia Jinyuan was calm and reserved, even cold. However, whenever he was in front of Yi Qian, he would always be so passionate and reveal a side that no one knew about. He held her waist tightly with one hand and held the back of her head with the other, turning the passive kiss into an active one. The tip of his warm and soft tongue wandered between her lips and teeth, entangling and sucking deeply. Their lips were connected for at least 3 minutes before they separated, as Yi Qian panted. Yi Qian rarely took the initiative to kiss him, but every time she kissed him, she could not help herself. Therefore, the more she was like this, the more Xia Jinyuan was pleasantly surprised. When she left, she was panting and her face was red. Does this kiss count as compensation? Her voice was soft and carried a shyness that made Xia Jinyuan's heart palpitate. This kiss should make you have no regrets. Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened, but it did not extinguish the longing in his heart because of her initiative, nor did it calm his emotions because of a nearly 3-minute kiss. Instead, it aroused a deeper desire. He wanted to hug the girl in front of him, who was always so soft-hearted towards him, tightly hold her in his arms, and kiss her fiercely. I've never had any regrets, and your initiative makes me want to love you even more. As he spoke in a low voice, his slender fingers gently stroked her chin. His Adam's apple moved slightly, and he slowly leaned down. Under the starry sky, Yi Qian saw a burning light burst out from the depths of his deep, obsidian-like eyes. The light flew in from all directions, and finally, it lit up his eyes, which made Yi Qian could see the fire in his eyes. She held her breath for a moment before his lips pressed down on hers. It's rare for my little fox to take the initiative, and on such a beautiful occasion. How can I let you down? I've never had any regrets towards you. You've always been the one I wanted. Their lips came closer, and after he finished speaking, he kissed her gently again. He had a deep obsession with Yi Qian, and this obsession did not diminish over time. Instead, it grew deeper and deeper, to the point that every time he saw Yi Qian, his obsession deepened. At this moment, in the face of Yi Qian's sudden initiative, Xia Jinyuan could not remain calm. His rationality and self-control were temporarily thrown aside. Not far away in the forest, there were light footsteps and the sound of branches and leaves rustling. From the electronic map, Q King will definitely choose to land in this area. The more we walk, the lower the bushes are. We should meet them soon. Chapter 2695. The T6 combatant's voice was sometimes high and sometimes low. He was a little impatient. Since Devil said that he was coming over to help, he was the first to raise his hand in agreement. Thus, he thought of the T6 combatant who wanted to ask about Injusin in front of Yi Qian Devil, who wanted to meet his sister as soon as possible to talk about their family matters, and Z7 combatant Han Jing, who wanted to join in on the fun. The three of them came together to help their comrades. Li Jinyan walked a little fast. In such a deep forest, there was no path at all. He simply raised his hand and swept it across. With one hand, he grabbed a branch and lifted his foot to step down. He steadily took one step after another. He had been separated from Yi Qian for even longer than Xia Jinyuan. They had not seen each other for almost half a year. When Xia Jinyuan returned from a mission during the May Day holiday, he asked about the rescue process. He learned that Yi Qian immediately rushed over to protect his uncle when the mortar exploded. Li Jinyan knew that he did not have to worry about his sister and uncle reuniting. Although he thought so, he still wanted to know how they were getting along. He was a little anxious to see Yi Qian. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan adjusted his breathing and gently kissed Yi Qian's trembling eyelashes. He chuckled softly and said, "I won't do anything to you in the wilderness. It's just that I can't control my emotions." As he spoke, he reached his hand into Yi Jinny's clothes and stopped at her waist, which was tied with a belt. He gently touched her delicate skin, and his heart swayed again. Just now, if it weren't for the belt around his waist stopping him, his hands would have already attacked two mountains. It was all thanks to the belt, otherwise he would have continued. Yi Qian's heart was pounding. She did not look at him with her sparkling eyes and only stared at his chest. It was as if a flower was about to bloom from her gaze. "I really shouldn't have kissed you, and I shouldn't have taken the initiative. Every time I take the initiative, you like to touch me." She spoke softly, and her soft and sweet words filled Xia Jinyuan's heart. "Yes, you can't take the initiative. Every time you take the initiative, the one who loses control in the end is me, not you." Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh. "I've really fallen into your hands for the rest of my life. You can make me lose control with just a kiss. If you go any harder, I'll be at your mercy." As he spoke, he had yet to take his hand away from her waist. Occasionally, he would stroke her back and forth gently. It was as if there was a ball of fire in his palm. When he touched Yi Jin's back, the skin on her waist was boiling hot. "Give me another 3 minutes to calm down. Let me calm down a little more." Xia Jinyuan exhaled a long breath that was as hot as fire. He tried his best to suppress the obvious impulses that stained the corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows. Yi Qian's heart was bashful, but at the same time, he was secretly delighted. Naturally, he was delighted because he couldn't control himself for her. Even such a powerful Captain Xia had to be meek in front of her. She didn't move. When he decisively removed his hand from her back, Yi Qian knew that this powerful man didn't need 3 minutes to adjust himself. Sure enough, after a minute, his undulating chest gradually calmed down, and his breathing gradually returned to normal. When the last trace of impulses disappeared from his brows, Xia Jinyuan helped Yi Qian tidy up his training uniform. No wonder even heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. These charms of a beautiful woman are too difficult to overcome. Just now, we were reckless during our break. It's beneficial for our physical and mental health. In the next 20 days, we won't have such a good opportunity. Chapter 2696. After straightening Yi Qian's clothes and collar, Xia Jinyuan placed his hands on her shoulders in satisfaction. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. All right, they won't notice anything amiss. I definitely won't notice anything amiss, but looking at you, my brother should be able to tell. Yi Qian, who had also calmed down, also straightened his clothes for him. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from above. She retracted her hands as if she had been electrocuted and said, "Don't tell me they're here to pick us up. So what if they're here? What's the point of avoiding them?" Colonel Xia raised his eyebrows and deliberately held Yi Qian's hand. "Let's go, my female warrior." It's not convenient to hold hands in the mountains. He didn't avoid it, but Yi Qian thought it was better to avoid it. However, it wouldn't be nice to immediately turn hostile after kissing him, so she found an excuse to avoid holding his hand. Xia Jinyuan wouldn't give her a chance. He held her hand even tighter. "What do you think my brother will do when he sees us? What else can he do? I'm just holding your hand now. I'm afraid you'll fall while walking in the dark, so I'm taking care of you. What could brother-in-law say?" "Not necessarily. My brother specifically told me not to have too much physical contact with you before we get married." Yi Qian replied with a smile. Although she said she didn't want to hold his hand, she couldn't bear to pull it away when he held her hand tightly. If he saw them, so be it. If Big Brother really said anything, she could just stand up and say that she took the initiative to hold his hand. The footsteps in front of them were getting closer and closer. No one was speaking, so they maintained their silence and walked down the mountain. Similarly, they also heard footsteps coming from below, but the people below didn't say anything. They didn't know if the people below were their comrades or someone else. Even though this area was deep in the mountains and forests and was deserted, those who dared to appear here were not good people. When a red light flashed below them, the people above them quickened their pace. Demon King Li Jinyan took the lead. When a withered tree trunk blocked his path, he took a few strides forward and supported himself with one hand on the trunk. With a simple leap, he appeared in front of Yi Qian before the T6 combatant and Han Zheng. The starlight in the sky was very bright. The hazy light blue starlight shone on the two people in front of them, outlining their silhouettes and allowing others to see their movements clearly. Li Jinyan's eyebrows twitched slightly before he slowly lowered them again. Holding hands was still acceptable. He strode over to Yi Qian. Without waiting for her to speak, Li Jinyan raised his hand and patted Yi Qian's head. His low and cold voice was filled with concern. "You must be tired. Did you rest well?" His action made Xia Jinyuan's eyelids twitch a few times. This action was clearly exclusive to him. Why did the devil like it too? The other party was his brother-in-law, so he had to endure it. Yi Qian was no longer the same as before when she saw the devil. In the past, she was in awe, but now she was close to him. Hearing this, the smile on her face was like a flower covered in dew in the morning, beautiful and moving. "I'm not tired. I slept on the plane, and when I was sent here, I slept for a few hours. I'm in good spirits. It's good that you're not tired." As they were close enough, Li Jinyan could clearly see the smile on Yi Qian's face. It was soft and comfortable. He lowered his gaze slightly and saw that Xia Jinyuan was still holding his sister's hand tightly with no intention of letting go. The devil coughed lightly and said calmly, "It's a mountain road. Just take care of yourself." Chapter 2697. She hasn't walked on mountain roads in a long time. It's better to be cautious at night. Xia Jinyuan smiled as he replied. He still didn't let go of her hand and said, "She has to get used to it. She hasn't walked on mountain roads in a long time. She has to get used to it." The T6 and Z7 were stunned. F*CK. There's a reason to hold hands like this. Li Jinyan frowned. "It's not a reason. You have to get used to it from the start. There's no process. How long have we been there?" The first part of the sentence was very serious, But the second part of the sentence, how long has it been, was just a casual remark. Xia Jinyuan knew that the main point was the last question. The helicopter just left. His brother-in-law wasn't easy to deal with. He had to be vigilant at all times. His little vixen was smart, but she was open and honest with her family. If she were to answer, she would definitely say that it had been about 10 minutes. That's right. She would be so honest that she would even tell the devil the exact time. 10 minutes had passed, but the two of them were still holding hands. What did that mean? It meant that they had done something that shouldn't be known. Xia Jinyuan was sure that as long as his little vixen answered in this way, the devil would definitely think of it. At the same time, Xia Jinyuan gently squeezed Yi Qian's hand, indicating for Yi Qian to answer in accordance with his words. As her palm was gently pinched, Yi Jian, who was smart, immediately realized what was going on. She blushed and lowered her head guiltily. For the time being, she was on the same side as her boyfriend. I just arrived and was about to leave when I heard your footsteps. Since she had followed her boyfriend's wishes, Yi Qian decided to follow her big brother's wishes. Just as Xia Jinyuan was satisfied with her answer, Yi Qian quickly withdrew her hand. Xia Jinyuan was speechless. He didn't pay attention and didn't hold his girlfriend's hand. Li Jinyan was satisfied. Satisfied, the Demon King had a soft smile on his face. He habitually raised his hand and gently rubbed her head. You rushed over immediately after the exam. You're quite motivated. It was not because she was motivated, but because her Captain Xia was here. Yi Qian, who felt even more guilty after being praised, looked up and tried his best to soften his guilty tone. You guys have been training for so long. I'm a little anxious too. It's good that you know how to be anxious. Work hard and make up for what you've missed. The corners of Li Jinyan's lips curled into a smile at his sister's courage. He rubbed the top of Yi Jian's head again. This time, she used a little more force. She rubbed Yi Qian's training cap so hard that it tilted a little. When he saw Xia Jinyuan beside him, he couldn't help but squint his eyes. He liked to rub her head too. Why does my brother-in-law like it too? This won't do. My brother-in-law has to change this habit. Demon King Li, who had a faint smile in his eyes, did not notice what the wolf beside him, who had been peeping at his younger sister, was thinking. He had been separated from Yi Jian for half a year. Seeing that she was no longer as distant and polite as before, his cold eyes were filled with warmth. This was his younger sister, the one who was most closely related to him by blood. Although they couldn't see each other often, her smile told him that no matter how far apart they were, no matter how long it took for them to meet each other, he still treated her as his closest relative in his heart. When he saw that her smile was bright and without a trace of gloominess, Li Jinyan felt even happier. In that case, his sister and uncle got along quite well. Chapter 2698. Just as Li Jinyan saw that Yi Qian's training cap was crooked and was about to raise his hand to fix it, Xia Jinyuan pretended not to notice. He stood in front of his brother-in-law from the side and straightened his girlfriend's cap in a serious manner. Today's training is about to start. We came back a little late, so we have to walk faster. After putting on his girlfriend's cap, Xia Jinyuan turned around and said to Li Jinyan with a smile, "Let's go, Devil King. While we're at it, tell Qingyao why we're training this time and if there's anything different about the training." He spoke very seriously. Li Jinyan, who was frowning slightly because of his actions, did not think too much about it. The group of 5 quickened their pace and walked deeper into the mountains. When the T6 combatant saw that his captain had entered a serious training state, he temporarily stopped thinking about asking Yi Qian about Injiasen's current situation. He decided to wait until they had a break before asking. On the 3-kilometer journey, Yi Qian started to understand what was so special about this training. You're all going to do it secretly? Why? Isn't this a competition? We should hurry up and train. Why does it feel like none of you are training for the sake of winning? What's this for? Yi Qian was really a little stunned. Questions kept popping up in his head. Big Brother said that this training would focus on sneak attacks. Captain Xia said that this training would involve training that did not allow one's strength to be determined, but was actually very lethal. Then Big Brother said that this training was not for the sake of a competition. The two of them went back and forth. She could understand every word they said, but she could not understand the deeper meaning behind each of their words. The T6 combatant laughed and said, "Ching Yao, we're really not going out to compete to win. If we go out to compete and win, it won't be good for us," Z7 added. Z7 added with a smile, "Let Q King answer your question properly. You'll understand very soon." Seeing that Yi Qian was even more confused, Xia Jinyuan said to the two combatants who interrupted, "Shut up and walk properly." The two people who were scolded laughed softly. One walked in front while the other walked behind. They really didn't interrupt. With Xia Jinyuan's answer, Yi Qian's questions were finally answered. The Snowfield Brigade is a special force. How can the country's strength be easily known by other countries? Therefore, our strength and existence cannot be known by other countries. This is why we have to carry out sneak attack training, only in the dark, not in the light. Going abroad to fight is not to win, but to learn. Among the Western countries' special forces, the U.S. SEALs, led by the United States, is one of the best. They will be participating in this competition. At the same time, there's also the 9th German Border Defense Brigade and the Italian Balaclava Commando Team. These three teams are all ace special forces in the world. They are all participating in this competition. It is undeniable that there is still a certain gap in strength between us and the world's ace special forces. If we complete the competition with them, there is a chance of winning, but the probability is small. Moreover, this competition is held for the sake of maintaining world peace in the future. The nature of the competition is different. If we win, we gain face, and if we lose, we gain experience. Don't feel too burdened. We should study hard when we should, and be ruthless when we should. After we're done, we should clean up the mess and not be discovered by the other country's special forces. Chapter 2699. Yi Qian understood everything. However, that was not what they said last time. Last time, they were determined to win. So why did they suddenly change their strategy? Did something happen in the middle? So, our goal now is not to win, but to learn? Other than that, she could not think of any other reason. Xia Jinyuan sneered and did not answer the question first. Instead, he smiled at Li Jinyin and said, "Did you see that? Your good sister is not easy to fool. She can always think of the crux of the matter." Li Jinyin raised his eyebrows, indicating that he already knew about this. Previously, there was only one high-ranking Special Forces team that joined, but for some reason, two teams suddenly joined at the last minute. Joining at the last minute is obviously against the rules, and it is not customary. The 9th Brigade and the Balaclava Commando Team are very low-key. Although we do not know why they suddenly came this time, for the sake of caution, we chose to keep a low profile for our first match. Xia Jinyuan smiled faintly, and his slow tone had a careless sharpness. This is the first time our country is participating in this kind of competition, so the leaders took it very seriously. They did not say that we have to fight for first place, but they said that we should at least have a ranking. Don't be too high profile and let people see through us, and don't be too low-key and let people look down on us. Just follow the rules. We think so too. The Snowfield Brigade is a special forces team with a serial number that cannot be found anywhere. They do all the work of stepping on knives. If we are too high profile, we will be targeted, which is not in line with our country's low-key style. But if we are too low-key, who knows how many countries outside want to see us make a fool of ourselves, especially the countries around Asia. There was a short pause in his casual tone. When he spoke again, his voice was tense and suddenly sharp. They want to see us make a fool of ourselves for a long time. The military of a country that is not even as big as a province of our country even went on TV. They almost patted their chest and said that they were 100% confident that they would teach our country a lesson. This country is not friendly to our country, but it is not hostile either. However, there's one thing that is not good about them. The domestic news reports every day about how dirty and chaotic our cities are, and how poor our people are. Other than the coastal cities and Beijing, all the other cities are very, very poor. How poor are they? So poor that even eating an apple was a luxury. While we're studying, we'll put in a bit of effort from time to time. Ranking and winning or losing are not important. The most important thing is to study hard and make progress every day. Yi Qian understood. Originally, they were going to fight for their pride. They had to know their limits and not win too high profile, but also not lose to the point that others would look down on them. Their names couldn't be ranked too high, but they couldn't be ranked too low either. They just had to have a certain deterrent effect on the surrounding countries in Asia. Now that the 9th Battalion and the Headgear Commando team had joined in, the leaders became more cautious. This is the first time our country is participating in the competition. These two countries that have always kept a low profile and disdained to participate in the competition suddenly made an impromptu decision to cut the queue and participate. The leaders have no choice but to think carefully and guess what the other party's intentions are. Our country didn't come, and you didn't come either. Our country came, and in the end a pair came. Whether or not there was a deeper meaning to it was unknown, but there was nothing wrong with handling it carefully. After the celebration, our country has been targeted, so we need to be more cautious, Li Jinyan added, which made Yi Qian understand the reason for the change in strategy. Chapter 2700. China had taken out so many self-developed weapons during the celebration ceremony. There were missiles, cannons, strategic nuclear missiles, tactical missiles, and intercontinental missiles. All of them had been unveiled for the first time. How frightening was that? Not only did the Western countries think China was poor, but so did the neighboring countries in Asia. In the end, they brought out strategic nuclear missiles and intercontinental missiles during the celebration. They were shocked and wary at the same time. This was the first time China sent out troops to participate in a competition that had never been invited before. There were probably more than 1 or 2 countries that wanted to test the strength of China's special forces. Yi Qian nodded slightly. It was more reliable to keep a low profile and be cautious at times like this. The SEALs, Team 9, and Team 9 are all ace special forces. It's important for us to learn from them and learn from their strengths. Moreover, it's rare to see 3 ace special forces together. We have to seize the opportunity. Yi Qian had already caught up with the rhythm. He sincerely thought that the decision made by China's military leaders was very wise. The American Special Forces had already become a comprehensive special force, and the American SEALs were a special force that hid 3 assault forces. They had the most outstanding soldiers, the most advanced weapons, and the most efficient training. It was only right for the Snowfield Brigade to learn from them. There was one more thing that needed to be mentioned. Although the SEALs were one of the world's ace special forces and had such a high reputation, the outside world rarely knew what missions this commando team would carry out and where they would train. No one knew when they would appear and when they would disappear. They only knew that the members of the SEALs were all highly skilled. They could climb mountains, dive into the sea, and even soar in the blue sky. The more Yi Jin thought about it, the more excited she became. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see them up close. He definitely couldn't miss it. Xia Jinyuan, who was walking with her, already felt her excitement. Just as his thin lips curved slightly, he heard her say, "How are we going to sneak up to them? We have to get close to them to be able to learn from them. What will they do when the time comes? It'll be difficult for us to get close to them." Not only did the problems not decrease, but they also increased. Li Jinyan, who always had a cold expression, couldn't help but laugh. His voice was low and sweet, surprisingly pleasant to the ears. "Don't worry, there will naturally be opportunities to learn from them when the time comes. You better keep up with our pace. Don't drag us down." With such a good opportunity to learn, how could Yi Qian allow himself to be a burden? In the following week, Yi Qian's desperate training made her comrades from the Snowfield Brigade and the Storm Commandos shudder in fear. This was the first time they had seen a female soldier working so hard. Yi Qian was a man of action, and he was also a man who was determined to improve himself. Not only did he go in and out with the male soldiers, he also gave himself extra training at night. Even Li Jinyan was secretly surprised by the intensity of his training. Li Jinyan was still a little worried. He looked at Yi Qian, who was submerged in the water and had not moved for 3 hours. He said to Xia Jinyuan, "If this goes on, are you sure she'll be fine? She's already been submerged in the water for 4 hours. The year she joined your team for intensive water training, the time she spent in the water was longer than this, right? She was fine in the past, so there's no need to worry about anything happening now." Chapter 2701. Xia Jinyuan stared at Yi Jian, who only exposed her nose. She hid very well, as if she grew up with the aquatic plants. There was no heartache in his deep black eyes, only determination. She is a female soldier. Female soldiers have a harder time than male soldiers. It's better to suffer now than to suffer on the battlefield later. I don't need to say this. You should understand. Why? Now that Qing Niao is your sister, you're soft-hearted? Li Jinyan pursed his lips and glanced at Xia Jinyuan. He said coldly, "If I were soft-hearted because she's my sister, I wouldn't have practiced with her at night. She hasn't rested since yesterday. Now that she's soaked in the water, I'm afraid she'll faint. If you were in the water and I were in the grass with her, I wouldn't be so worried." Since the main goal of the training was to ambush, all the training missions began with ambushes. This time, Xia Jinyuan, Li Jinyan, and Yi Qian were on the receiving end of the ambush, while K7 and the others were on the attacking side. The group of 15 people was divided into 2 teams. One team had 3 people, and the other had 12 people. They were now guarding the position, waiting for K7 and the others to arrive. Xia Jinyuan sneered. "If we really want to switch, it'll be you hiding in the water and Qing Niao and I lying in the grass. Brother-in-law, you have to be kind. How can you try to ruin my relationship with Qing Niao? Brother-in-law? Q King, are you sure you passed my uncle's test? Once you've passed my uncle's test, it won't be too late for you to claim kinship with me." Hearing the devil's cold reply, Lieutenant Colonel Xia smirked. "My future father-in-law even told Qing Niao that I'm a good team leader and that I can learn from him. You have a good impression of me. You'll pass my future father-in-law's test sooner or later. Wait for me, brother-in-law." How thick-skinned. Li Jinyan wanted to kick him and leave a footprint on that thick-skinned man. Coming. Stay close. As this thought flashed through his mind, the thick-skinned man suddenly lowered his voice. His aura changed drastically in an instant. After the murderous aura, there was a restrained calmness, as if he had become one with the mountain, the ground, the trees, and the grass. Li Jinyan knew that he couldn't see through the guy beside him. Just a second ago, he wasn't serious, but the next moment, he was giving you the most serious look, and he could even scare people. Just like now, his aura was restrained, but the cold light from his eyes seemed to be able to destroy the mountains and rivers. It was exceptionally cold. Yi Qian saw Xia Jinyuan's hand gesture. She had been hiding in the seaweed for 4 hours, holding her breath and quietly waiting for her comrades to arrive. Beside her legs, a water snake as thick as a thumb and more than a meter long slithered about. The snake's tail swept past Yi Qian's knees and coiled around his upper body. The snake's head was only a few centimeters away from Yi Qian's nose. Yi Qian had already seen the water snake. At the same time, she quickly determined whether it was non-poisonous. Flat-headed, gray-scaled, a non-poisonous water snake. Since it was a non-poisonous water snake, Yi Qian ignored it. She only held her breath slightly, so as not to disturb the water snake that was parallel to her head. Although it wasn't poisonous, it would still hurt if it bit her face. Yi Qian didn't disturb the water snake. The snake's head slithered forward and finally left Yi Qian, allowing her to heave a sigh of relief. The forest was quiet in the morning, but there was also a sense of liveliness that made people feel relaxed and happy. It was the sound of birds chirping through the treetops and spreading in all directions. They were chirping happily. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed slightly when she heard footsteps. Chapter 2702. Ambushes did not differentiate between day and night, and they only had one goal: to kill the opponent and protect themselves. Footsteps came from above, but then she heard the sound of water behind her. This was the the water demons from the storm commandos entering the water. This was their strength. Yi Qian did not panic, and she did not move carelessly. Underwater movement was the water demon's strength, but she was not that bad either. She had already occupied an advantageous position in advance, and all she had to do was find the right opportunity to strike. It was 3 against 12, and each of them had to deal with 4 ambushes. The water demons entered the water very gently, just like fish swimming into the water. Only layers of ripples spread out. Yi Qian, who was hiding in the water grass, did not move. She waited until the ripples in front of her became smaller and slower, and then she dived into the water as well. The water and the land were 2 different worlds. The land was bright and clear, while the water was dark and murky, full of the unknown. Yi Qian, who was hiding in the water grass near the shore, held her breath and slowly lowered her head into the water. Yi Qian, who had entered the water, saw her target. Judging from the figure, it should be the big eel. This was a group of water demons who had undergone special training, but might not go abroad with her. The natural lakes inland were full of unknown dangers. No one knew how deep they were, and no one knew what kind of creatures lived underwater. The natural lakes in Tibet looked green, bright, and clean, but when one entered the water, one would know that the green was because of the depth and the water grass. The big eel had not discovered her hiding in the water grass. Yi Qian carefully turned her neck to look forward, left, and right. There was no one at the moment. Her back was close to the shore. She just needed to be alert to her left, right, and front. Without the help of a breathing device and encountering a water demon who was good at underwater combat, a direct attack was the best way. But the water demons would think the same. Yi Qian quickly denied. The big eel was very cautious. He did not know who he would encounter when he entered the water, but he had to enter the water because he was cooperating with his comrades to test the people hiding in the water below. The big eel went down to hook the fish, and the big mermaid waited for the fish to take the bait. Demon King, let's make a bet. Let's see if the Qing Niao can kill the big eel. Xia Jinyuan admired Shui Gui's stealthy immersion style of fighting. He sent Yi Qian to train with him because he hoped that she could learn from him so that it would be easier for her to get used to in the future. At this moment, she was a little interested in her former masters, Xia Jinyuan. Li Jinyan maintained his cold expression and replied, "The Qing Niao will lose, but the big eel won't gain much of an advantage. In the end, the big mermaid will benefit." In the water, the soldiers he brought out lost to Qing Niao. He felt ashamed. That's not necessarily true, Demon King. Qing Niao is the most unpredictable. The corners of Xia Jinyuan's mouth curled up even more. His eyes were full of confidence. I bet that Qing Niao won't be the one to lose. This was because Qing Niao was very good at judging the situation and knew how to make her sneak attack succeed. His confidence made Li Jinyan narrow his eyes slightly. What he meant by unpredictable meant that she might not necessarily go underwater to compete with the big eel. Instead, she chose to Li Jinyan, who had his gaze on the shore, also curled his lips slightly. He understood what Q King meant. If she could not defeat him underwater, she would turn to land. Yi Qian, who had entered the water again, knew that it would be difficult for her to defeat the big eel, so she changed her mind. Water to land. There were people on land who had been watching the water. As long as she poked her head out, they would definitely observe her. It was not that she did not have a chance to go ashore. As long as she went ashore, everything would be fine. Chapter 2703. Her hands slowly grabbed onto the shrubs growing from the shore. In the blink of an eye, there was the sound of splashing water. Her wet figure appeared in the sunlight like a fox that had fallen into the water. With a nimble leap and 2 rolls, she plunged into the shrubs. The big merman who was guarding outside stared at the black figure that dashed past his line of sight. He softly said, "That's fast." It was so fast that before he could do anything, the black figure had already entered the shrubs. The big merman could tell that it was Yi Qian's figure. When the big eel underwater heard the sound, he knew that something bad had happened. He didn't know who had returned from underwater, but he and the big merman's fishing operation had failed. Xia Jinyuan gave the Demon King a provocative look. What do you think of my soldier? Not bad, right? Not bad. Li Jinya nodded and admitted, I've always thought that my sister is very talented. Unable to continue chatting, Xia Jinyuan turned his head away and stopped watching. Next, it was Yi Qian's turn to deal with the target that had entered the targeted area. He just had to watch from the sidelines. A sneak attack was also a confrontation, especially when both sides knew of each other's existence. It became a silent confrontation. The big eel underwater began to swim quickly. He needed to get away from the location of the sound of water and return to the shore. Yi Qian had already slowly moved. She was the one being attacked, but she could also take the initiative to attack the target. There were still people on the shore, and they were not far from her. She couldn't search directly, but she also needed to do a carpet search. Yi Qian, who was lying in the shrubs, began to sweat. Her combat uniform began to heat up from the sun's rays. She began to move again. After moving to a position where the trees were densely packed, Yi Qian stood up and quickly hid behind a tree. Her sharp eyes scanned the surroundings and finally locked onto the tree that was wrapped in vines. Climbing trees was also a skill that a Special Forces soldier had to know. She stuck one hand into the vines and used the dark green leaves of the vines to hide her hands and body that were hugging the trunk. Yi Jian hugged the trunk and climbed to a high place with a few huffs and puffs. Xia Jinyuan also acted at the same time. He went to deal with the big eel that was preparing to go ashore. The eel had little chance of winning against Xia Jinyuan. As soon as it came out of the water, Xia Jinyuan, who had been waiting for it, pounced on it like a tiger pouncing on its prey. The big eel on the shore resisted. It raised its hand to block Xia Jinyuan's dagger and hit Xia Jinyuan's chin with its elbow. During the special training, all of them had to use real swords. Only the bullets were empty. When the real saber entered the field, it was more like a fight against the enemy. Blanks were shot directly at him. Yi Qian pulled on the vine tightly and slid down a little from the 2-meter-tall tree. Then, he let go of the vine and jumped up. She was looking for the target. At the same time, the target also found the swaying vine leaves. The gunshots suddenly stopped. Xia Jinyuan, who had taken care of Big Eel, could not tell who had fired the shot. He only knew that his pistol was pressed against Big Eel's forehead. He had taken care of one of the 4 targets. You've worked hard. You can take a break now. Xia Jinyuan put away his pistol. At this moment, his murderous aura disappeared, leaving only sharpness. Big Eel, who was covered in sweat, reached out his hand. The two of them clasped hands and bumped shoulders. You were Qing Yao just now, right? If you were the devil, you would have killed me in the water. Qing Yao knew she couldn't beat you in the water, so she came out of the water. I guess it was her too. Let me take a break. There's another wave tonight. After confirming who it was, Big Eel rubbed his sore chest and panted as he went to rest. Chapter 2704. Being an opponent of Q King was simply deadly. Both the sword and the gun were on the field, and it seemed like he would finish them off in the next second. Yi Qian, who had dodged the Great Mermaid's attack, hit himself without making a single move. Since the Great Mermaid had fired her gun, it meant that Yi Qian knew his approximate location. As a result, the battle between the two of them began, and it was time to see who would find the other first. Yi Qian, who had climbed up the tree again, hid in the dense foliage. His eyes were like an eagle soaring in the blue sky, watching every movement on the ground. As soon as the prey appeared, he would attack immediately. The shrubs that were half a meter tall brushed lightly, as if there were small animals moving underneath. The corners of Yi Qian's mouth were already slightly raised. He didn't move and just stared ahead, quietly waiting for the prey to enter. The Storm Commandos had been training with the Snowfield Brigade, and they had all learned how to play ruthlessly in the dark. Now that they were on land, they were well-known figures. They had a good foundation, and they had been trained by the Devil King. From last year to this year, their comprehensive skills had been improving. In the words of a Navy commander, the Storm Commandos will definitely become an amazing tripod special force. And in the future, the Storm Commandos would be in the light, while the Snowfield Brigade would be in the dark. one in the light and one in the dark. The two sharp blades would cut through all obstacles and maneuver unhindered. By the time the Great Mermaid realized that she had been targeted, it was already too late. A black shadow passed through the leaves, and with the glaring sunlight, it pounced on her fiercely with the speed of a cheetah. After the Great Mermaid reacted, she rolled on the spot and tried to dodge. There was no way to dodge at all. Her leg was tripped, and she fell to the side. With one hand on the ground, the Great Mermaid raised her leg and kicked, quickly and fiercely preparing to meet the attack. At this time, they were no longer comrades who had trained together, but a fierce battle where only one of them could survive. There was no mercy, and they had no choice but to be ruthless. 12 people ambushing 3 people. If they were to lose, it would be a bit embarrassing. However, among the 3 of them, one was the Devil King, one was Q King, and one was Qing Niao, who didn't play by the rules. The chances of winning and losing were 50-50. It wasn't that easy to win, but to lose? They had never thought about it. The Big Mermaid, who didn't want to lose, already knew who had ambushed her. It was Qing Niao who didn't play by the rules. Close combat was all about one move, one's strength, and one's reflexes. With these 3 combined, one's chances of winning would be higher. Yi Qian knew that his strength was slightly weaker than the male soldiers, but he could use his moves and agility to make up for the lack of strength. The Great Merman kicked with one leg, but Yi Qian grabbed his calf and twisted it in the opposite direction. Without mercy, Yi Qian only had one thought in his mind, and that was to defeat the Great Mermaid. She didn't show any mercy, but the Big Merman wasn't surprised at all. This was a life and death training, a training where there was a certain chance of death. It was normal for her to die. What's more, they were undergoing special training. When they came out, they had all signed the life and death agreement. The Big Mermaid didn't want to break a bone. After seeing through Yi Qian's tactics, he followed the direction of the leg and turned his body. With his quick reflexes, he dodged the bone fracture. Li Jinyan heard the fighting inside, and his gun was already silently aimed at another figure, a figure who was planning to sneak over to help the Big Mermaid. Bang! The sound of a blank bullet rang out, and the birds in the area flapped their wings and flew up in fright. The figure who was shot touched his chest, and his face was cold. Although the bullet was a safe blank bullet within a certain distance, it would still hurt if it hit the body. This feeling was really unpleasant. Even if it was unpleasant, it couldn't be helped. It had already been dealt with. Chapter 2705. Yi Qian heard the gunshots and knew that she was in a dangerous area. If she didn't take care of the Great Merman, she would be taken care of. Yi Jian pulled out the unnotched combat dagger and attacked even more fiercely. She picked up, stabbed, and chopped the dagger like a Roman gladiator. She held the dagger with her right hand and stabbed directly at Meng Qi. The Roman gladiator's dagger combat relied on physical strength as well as speed and technique. Although it was aggressive, it wasn't as strong as the Thracian gladiator, which relied on physical strength to attack. She used her attacks to surround the Great Merman and achieve her goal. This time, the Great Merman had a hard time dodging, especially when Yi Qian used her backstabbing technique. The Great Merman's back arm was cut by the unsharpened dagger. If the dagger had been sharpened and the groove was pulled out, his arm would have been cut so deep that his bones could be seen. Before he could block her dagger, the dagger that was clearly raised high kicked towards his lower abdomen along with her right leg. When he dodged, her left hand had quickly and nimbly caught the dagger in her right hand and stabbed downwards. Good technique. The Great Merman couldn't help but applaud Yi Qian's dagger combat skills. You flatter me. Yi Qian raised her eyebrows and stabbed downwards 3 times in a row. Her left leg attacked from below at the same time, forcing the Great Merman to dodge sideways. Hiss! The Great Merman, who had been dodging sideways, gasped in shock. His heart was pierced by Yi Jian's dagger. Although the unsharpened dagger didn't pierce through his heart, the dull pain lingered in his heart for a long while, lingering in his heart. The Great Merman, whose arm was burning with pain, ended the fight. He had lost. I didn't expect Qing Niao's dagger combat skills to be so strong. You surprised me. The great merman rubbed his arm again and smiled brightly on his tanned face. I admit defeat in a dagger combat. Yi Qian smiled and put away her dagger. She seemed to have thought of something and answered the great merman with a smile. In the past, I couldn't win because I didn't have a weapon. But now, a cannonball can kill a battalion, a company, or even a regiment. Dagger fighting has already fallen behind. It's only suitable for sneak attacks when it's inconvenient to shoot. That may be the case, but dagger combat is still quite important. Sometimes, when we need to launch sneak attacks underwater, we have to use our hands to take out the sentries. Using guns will only alert the enemy. Dagger fighting will not fall behind. It has its own place, and it will be used when you need it the most. Just like the great mermaid pointed at her chest and patted her arm, which was still burning with pain. Just like now, my strength has come out, and I've been killed by you. There is still a gap between us and the Snowfield Brigade. We still need to strengthen our training. Yi Qian didn't deny the big mermaid's words. There was even a deep smile in his eyes. He blinked and said with a smile, "But last time, I heard you say to K7 that close combat will be eliminated one day." Hearing this, the great mermaid was stunned for a few seconds, while Air chuckled softly. "So, this is the lesson you want to teach me?" "You can say that," Yi Qian admitted generously. His eyes were open and clear, making the scolded great mermaid even more humble. "I won't do it again. I'll remember today's lesson." Hearing the great mermaid's answer, Yi Qian smiled faintly. Uncle Chun and Uncle Jin had once told her that close combat was the last protective talisman. If a special forces soldier couldn't even pass close combat and dagger combat, then this special forces soldier was just for show. Chapter 2706. Dagger combat was a skill that the Snowfield Brigade had to master. Fighting in the dark was a tradition of the team, and being ruthless in the dark was a specialty of the team. Some people thought that dagger combat had long fallen behind. They even said that if you were sneaking around, you would be blasted into the sky by a cannonball. This was a classic example of how easy it was to say. To give a simple example, when rescuing hostages, could you blast the criminals with a cannonball and clear the hostages at the same time? Therefore, even if information warfare became more widespread in the future and long-range combat became the dominant force in the future battlefield, sneak attacks would always exist. They could never fall behind. It was the same for dagger combat. Yi Qian accidentally heard the great mermaid say that close combat would be eliminated one day. Today, he had the opportunity to let the great mermaid know that close combat would not be eliminated. After being taught a lesson, the great mermaid and the great eel sat together. The great eel immediately turned his back to his comrade. "Help me massage my back. I fell hard and crushed my shoulder blade." "Who did you go up against?" "I didn't see you lose after a few moves." The great mermaid immediately massaged his comrade's injured left shoulder blade and said with interest, "I went up against Qing Niao and was taught a lesson by her. I feel like Qing Niao's personality is much more outgoing than before. In the past, when she trained with us, other than talking to us during training, she usually likes to sit alone and stare blankly at the sea for hours." The great mermaid was clenching her teeth from being massaged. Hearing this, her facial features were still twisted as she replied, "A woman changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. It's normal for her to become stronger. How did Qing Yao teach you a lesson? When did you do anything that made her unhappy? Otherwise, why would she use the word teach?" "Last time when I was chatting with the G5, I said that close combat would be eliminated in the future war. She overheard it and took the opportunity to teach me a lesson today." The great mermaid pulled up her arm and bent her elbow to show her comrade. "Here, she cut me. Fortunately, it wasn't sharp, or else my bones would have been scratched." Then he patted his chest where his heart was. "Here, she stabbed me in the back. It hurt so much that I thought the dagger had stabbed into my heart. A layer of cold sweat broke out on my back. In the end, she even purposely said that dagger combat has already fallen behind, and it's only suitable for sneak attacks when it's inconvenient to shoot. So I refuted her. Ha ha, I fell right in her trap and slapped myself in the face. Qing Miao is now the second person on my list not to be trifled with. The second is not to be trifled with. Who was first? Rub my shoulders, rub my shoulders. My bones are aching. Demon King and Q King are tied for first place, and Qing Miao is second. I have to be careful when I see them in the future. Both of them are too good at keeping their cool. You can't even tell that they're trying to teach you a lesson. The big eel grinned. Then you'd better be careful. After Qing Miao teaches you a lesson, I wonder if the Demon King and Q King will make a move. Brother, you're on your own. Saying that close combat will be eliminated in front of special forces like the Snowfield Brigade, who are good at assassination, is it because you've been in the sea for too long that your brain has been flooded with water? The Snowfield Brigade soldiers, the Demon King warned us early on that they are a group of people who like to play ruthless in the dark. They are so ruthless that you have to avoid them when you see them in the future. How dare you say such things to them? Do you have a death wish? Chapter 2707. Speaking of the great merman, he smiled bitterly. Wasn't that just asking for death? Today, he had already been killed by Qing Yao. The next few days would not be easy. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan praised Yi Qian. Not bad. You don't have to stand up on the spot. Later on, find a suitable time to tell them what they shouldn't jump to conclusions. Let them remember it for the rest of their lives. Well done. Don't you think so, Demon King? The Demon King, who had heard the entire conversation, had a cold expression. Now, it was even colder, as if a thin layer of ice had been poured on top of a snowflake. Even his eyes were cold. Well taught. He still needs to remember. The Demon King had personally spoken. It could already be foreseen that the great merman would not have an easy time in the next few days. At night, the Demon King crept up from behind the great merman and pressed him to the ground from behind. One of his large hands pressed down on the back of the great merman's neck, while the other hand held both of his hands. He said coldly, "Shameless boasting. How dare you say that you will be eliminated from close combat in the future? I don't even need to wait for the future. I can eliminate you now. What was to come would come sooner or later. There is no escape even if you wanted to. Demon King, I know I was wrong. Please be gentler. My hands are about to be destroyed. Really, I was taught a lesson by Qing Yao during the day. I will remember it." The great merman's face was pale from the pain. Beads of sweat appeared on the tip of his nose. You're already admitting defeat at the beginning? Great merman, there are more exciting things waiting for you. Also, don't let me hear such words again. The cold-faced Li Jinyan let go. His long legs moved, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dark forest. Xia Jinyuan slowly returned to the grass and smiled at Yi Qian. The Demon King soldiers are not cowards. Their strength on land has greatly improved. In another 2 years, the Storm Tri-Amphibious Assault Team will definitely become a powerful special naval force in the southern seas of our country. The Demon King lives up to his reputation. The military had chosen him to lead a special naval force. He was indeed worthy of being a leader. He had great foresight and foresight. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan both appreciated each other. Although they used to be rivals, they were now leading their own teams and achieving good results. Although they still secretly competed with each other, they no longer had the impulse to train together like they did when they were young. They only occasionally opposed each other. When Yi Qian heard this, he couldn't help but smile. My brother is definitely amazing. Otherwise, how could he be entrusted with such a heavy responsibility and become the leader of the Storm Commandos? After she finished speaking, the man beside her did not say anything for a long time. Yi Qian could not help but turn her head sideways and see that the man was staring at her without blinking. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? She asked, somewhat puzzled. I'm thinking, did you say that I'm powerful too? Thinking about it carefully, I don't think. I've mentioned it before. Lieutenant Colonel Xia sounded a little wronged, and the pitiful tone in his voice made Yi Qian pause for a moment. Thinking about it, it seemed that, indeed, he had never praised him in front of Captain Xia. In an instant, Yi Qian felt uneasy. She cleared her throat and was about to speak when she heard the man beside her say with an aggrieved expression, "Come, come, come. Praise me too. My brother is powerful, but my boyfriend is even more powerful. I'll be very happy if you praise me like this." The uneasy Yi Qian swallowed the words that were already at the tip of her tongue. "You can't praise me anymore. If you continue to praise me, you won't know what your surname is." Yi Qian gently retreated and began to distance herself from him. "Where are you retreating to? You have to follow me tonight. It's rare that I don't have to fight. Let's watch how they ambush us together. How can you leave my line of sight?" Lieutenant Colonel Xia immediately retreated and headed to another ambush point. Chapter 2708. Yi Qian ignored Lieutenant Colonel Xia's pursuit, and the uneasiness in her heart disappeared without a trace. Although she had never said that Captain Xia was good, she had set him as her goal from the beginning and worked hard to catch up. Until today, he was still her goal, and it had never changed. She didn't need to say how good he was. Everything about her was enough to prove that he was really good, really good. Just now, it was obvious that he did it on purpose, and she really fell for it. At night, it started to rain again in the mountains, from fine drips to a torrential downpour. Xia Jinyuan caught up with Yi Qian, who was waiting for him, and wiped the rainwater off his face. He chuckled and said, "Are you angry now? How angry are you? Or do you just want to ignore me for now? I'm not wrong. You didn't praise me for being good. Although the devil is your brother, we've always been competing in secret. Now that you're praising the devil, sigh, I feel sour and uncomfortable." "Competing in secret?" Yi Qian was confused. "When did you and my brother compete in secret? Why didn't I know about it?" "A long, long time ago when we were training in the same team. I wanted to be first, and he wanted to be first too. Since we didn't give in to each other, we naturally competed in secret." Tonight was their resting time. Xia Jinyuan, who had been tense the whole time, brought up an interesting story from the past. "We carried weights for 20 kilometers, and we hiked for an entire day. Now, we carried weights for 20 kilometers. In the end, only I and the devil competed for first place. I thought so, and so did he. We fought and tripped each other all the way. In the end, neither of us reached the finish line. Both of us got heat stroke at the same time and couldn't even crawl. We were dragged to the car and sent to the hospital. That was the first time I competed with the devil. I immediately knew that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. The more it was like that, the more I wanted to compete with him. Our training, the situation was different, so sometimes you use some dirty tricks. As long as you won, the team wouldn't do anything to you. When we entered, the first thing the instructor said was the winner is king, and the loser is a bandit. You can use whatever tricks you have, and use whatever skills you have. If you win, it's your skill. I guess the Demon King and I are the same kind of people. It just so happens that both of us have the same goal, which makes us even more competitive. Plus, they're the same age, and they're young and energetic. On the surface, they seem to be friendly with each other, and they can even put their arms around each other's shoulders, but on the training ground, Xia Jinyuan recalled the hellish training he had gone through for half a year and how he had met the Devil King. Even the heavy rain could not hide the smile on his face. It's not an exaggeration to say that we fought to the death. As he spoke in a low voice, Yi Qian turned his attention away. Because of the rain, he drew closer to Xia Jinyuan. When he finished, Yi Qian laughed and said, "You fought to the death, and in the end you fought until you became friends, didn't you? Friends who appreciate each other. Although they compete in secret, they admire each other. Sometimes, even if you lose, do you lose willingly?" The same goal. He remembered that Captain Xia once said that he later came to the Snowfield Brigade, while his brother went to the Navy and became the captain of the Storm Commandos. In that case, the two of them had the same goal back then, which was to fight for the position of captain of the Snowfield Brigade. That's right. That's why I later went to the Snowfield Brigade, and he was assigned to the Navy to take on a difficult task. Now, we've both achieved our goals. Even if there were some unresolved problems in the past, they're all gone now. Chapter 2709. If you say that the devil is amazing, I'll admit that he's amazing. The Navy gave him such a big task. From a selection of the members of the Storm Commando team, to the establishment of the Commando team, and then to the transformation of a new Marine Special Commando team into a tri-amphibious integrated combat force, the Demon King's contributions are indispensable. From the looks of it, the devil is actually better than me. Yes, it's my brother-in-law who's better. You're right. In the end, Xia Jinyuan nodded seriously to express his affirmation of Yi Qian's words. Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not angry. I just feel a little uneasy after hearing what you said, because I didn't directly say that you're amazing. The rain beat against the leaves, making a loud pitter-patter sound. Through the night vision goggles, Yi Qian saw the man who was only a fist away from her. His thin lips curved into a sexy smile, and his handsome face looked soft and warm. Her heart skipped a beat, and she waved at the man, gesturing for him to come closer. Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and missed the flash of shyness on Yi Qian's face. In my heart, you'll always be my goal. You'll always be the most amazing person. She leaned over and whispered into his ear. Her voice was very soft, like a feather brushing against his ear. Then, it slowly fell into Xia Jinyuan's heart. Xia Jinyuan, whose eyebrows had softened, held Yi Jian's hand. Through the green world, he raised his head slightly and saw her shy look. His heart instantly melted into a puddle of water. She could still feel uneasy because of his words. It was obvious how important he was to her. His little fox really made his heart palpitate. Before he could say anything, K7's cold voice came through the earpiece and interrupted Xia Jinyuan. Who's near me? There's a bear nearby. Be careful. Xia Jinyuan adjusted his breathing and turned on the earpiece. Qing Yao and I are near you. Send me your location. The GPS coordinates were sent over. Yi Qian looked at the distance and frowned. It's only 700 meters. We're still within the bear's range. K7, stay at your original position. Everyone, pay attention. There's a bear nearby. Training will be suspended. Xia Jinyuan immediately issued a new order. At the same time, he contacted Devil King Li Jinyan. A bear has appeared. Training has been interrupted. Li Jinyan, who had already taken care of 2 of his team members, leaned against a tree and scanned the path ahead with his flashlight. His eyes were a little gloomy. Turn away from the position and move to higher ground. There's a small cave in here. It had been raining for 3 consecutive days. Not only did the rain not slow down, it seemed to be getting heavier. If it continued to rain, it might cause the mountain to collapse. Once the mountain collapsed, no matter how capable they were of facing a natural disaster, they would not be able to do anything. The training was interrupted, and everyone quickly moved to higher ground. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan could not move immediately. They could already see the bear in their line of sight. You guys go first. We've encountered a big guy. We have to make way for it. Xia Jinyuan lowered his voice. He switched to the public channel and quietly contacted all his comrades. An adult black bear. It's big and male. All his comrades could hear Xia Jinyuan's voice. Li Jinyan, who had already started to move, narrowed his eyes. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, Q King, I'll leave Qing Yao to you. Don't worry, you guys go first. We're on higher ground, facing the sun, and the soil is firm. Xia Jinyuan had already pulled Yi Qian to his side. Neither of them moved. They were afraid that if they moved, they would attract the bear that was obviously looking for food. Chapter 2710. Black bears were protected by the country. Even though they were training, they could not accidentally injure a black bear. Among the wild animals in the mountains, they could eat wild hares and common pheasants. These 2 types of wild animals were the ones they caught the most. Since they provided protein, they also replenished their energy. About 50 meters away from them, an adult male with a V tattoo on its chest was rubbing its back against a tree. It was scratching itself. Back off, Qing Yao. Xia Jinyuan raised his hand gently and spoke very softly. He did not dare to raise his voice. Although they were all special forces, they still had to fight to know if they could gain the upper hand against the black bear, who had thick skin and was born with great strength. Xia Jinyuan did not want to fight, so he could only go around it. Step by step, they slowly retreated. Yi Qian stared straight ahead. After retreating a few steps, he slowly turned around and retreated sideways, step by step. Both of them had to keep their eyes on the front at all times. They could not look away, so they could only retreat. The torrential rain hit so hard that even the leaves rustled. The wind blew past the sharp treetops, causing them to sway left and right as if they would break and fall in the next second. Yi Qian smelled a faint fishy smell in the wind and rain. It was the smell of the black bear. Although it was very faint, it was extremely uncomfortable. "Don't stop, retreat again." The man in front of them had one arm spread open, protecting Yi Qian behind him. At this time, he would definitely not let Yi Qian cooperate with him. He would definitely do his best to protect his girl. Facing such a large and ferocious wild animal, Yi Qian was very calm. Every few steps he retreated. He would stop and wait for Xia Jinyuan. Step by step, they finally retreated until they could no longer see the black bear. "Hurry up and go up. This thing is too aggressive. If you bite it, you will definitely tear it apart." Xia Jinyuan turned around and grabbed Yi Qian's hand. Braving the heavy rain that was so heavy that even the night vision goggles couldn't see the mountain path, they headed towards the sun-facing, densely forested area on the mountain. The two of them had only run a few steps when a loud roar of a wild beast suddenly came from behind them. That roar was not like a tiger's roar that could make all living things crawl. Instead, it was like a huge iron hammer that suddenly smashed into their hearts, causing their hearts to fiercely skip half a beat. Following that was an uncontrollable panic that could not be suppressed. It was the first time Yi Qian had heard such a loud roar. Her heart skipped a beat as she grabbed Xia Jinyuan's hand. "Run faster, Captain Xia." Its voice doesn't sound right. It seems to be frightened. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rumbling sound that sounded like thunder hitting the ground. Chapter 2711. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, the military received news that a huge mudslide had occurred deep in the mountains at the border of Tibet and Sichuan. Because it was deep in the mountains, there were no signs of human habitation, so no one was affected. However, the 15 Special Forces soldiers who had entered the mountains for training had lost contact with the military. Satellite positioning could not track their tracks, nor could they locate their current location. Today was Sunday, and it was Master Xia's 86th birthday. Master Xia's 3 sons and 1 daughter all rushed back to the old mansion in Beihai to celebrate Master Xia's birthday. Many of the younger generation also came, and there were also 6 great-grandchildren's children. They held candies in their hands and ran and jumped happily in the big yard. Ho Zi, who was talking to the elders, looked outside from time to time, keeping an eye on his wife, Xia Yiwei. There were so many children in the house, and his wife was so pregnant. He was worried that the children would accidentally bump into her. If they did, it would be terrible. Retracting his gaze, Ho Zi saw Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was sitting on his left, take out his cell phone from his pocket. He didn't know what was said on the phone, but he clearly saw Commander-in-Chief Xia, the father of his 6th son, suddenly change his expression. "Okay, I got it. I'll be right there." His voice suddenly became tense, as if it was a straight line that would break at any time. Ho Zi quickly calmed himself down and heard Commander-in-Chief Xia say to him, "Little Ho, take the grandchildren with you to celebrate the old man's birthday. I have something urgent to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. When the old man asks me later, just tell him that I have something to do and have to leave." The old man was invited by his granddaughter, Zhou Yijin, to open the gifts. A few minutes after he left, Commander-in-Chief Xia received an urgent call from the military. Ho Zi was now family Xia's grandson-in-law, so Commander-in-Chief Xia did not treat him as an outsider. He whispered a few words and got up to leave. To the left of Commander-in-Chief Xia sat the old man's eldest son, Xia Onghua. Xia Onghua also left with the old man. 1 seat away was his cousin. He was talking to the old man's 2nd son, Xia Jiaza, about a piece of land in a low voice. Both of them were real estate developers, so the topic of their conversation was business. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who left in a hurry, did not interrupt the two of them and left in a hurry. Huh? Why is my third brother leaving in such a hurry? Xia Jiazi heard the commotion and looked up to see Commander-in-Chief Xia's back. So he asked Houzi, Xiaoho, where did your uncle go? Houzi was very respectful to family Xia's uncles. He was an orphan and had no family. Family Xia knew what he had done in the past, so he accepted him unconditionally because of Xia Yiwei. Houzi was very touched by this and sincerely treated family Xia's elders as his own elders. Hearing this, he said respectfully, Little uncle, third uncle just received a call and told me that he had to leave because he had something to do. I will explain it to the old man when he comes back. It's most likely about the military. Xia Jiazi frowned slightly, and his hair was a little pale. He smiled to Houzi and said, Come, Xiaoho, come and talk to me. You are doing well in the southern province. Do you have any plans for the coastal area? Talking about business was Houzi's specialty. Hearing this, he smiled happily and sat down. Outside, Xia Yiwei was talking to her aunt, Xia Sujuan, when she saw Commander-in-Chief Xia walking out in a hurry. With her big belly, she hurriedly asked, Uncle, where are you going? It's time to cut the birthday cake for the old man. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was striding out, waved his hand when he heard this. He did not stop and said with a smile, I have something urgent to deal with. You and Xiaoho accompany the old man. After that, he lowered his head and ordered the guard, contact the person in charge in Zhongchuan. I want to talk to him personally. Chapter 2712. Commander-in-Chief Xia held an important position in the military, and it was common for him to leave home in a hurry. Between the country and his family, men with family Xia would always choose the country. But what Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't expect was that when he walked out of the courtyard house, he saw a Hongqi car that had just turned off. The driver got out first, and it was an armed policeman. He didn't see Commander-in-Chief Xia yet, and immediately ran to the back door of the car after getting out of the car. Commander-in-Chief Xia heard the armed policeman whisper, Be careful. Those who could come to family Xia at this time must be old acquaintances. Commander-in-Chief Xia saw an unexpected old man get out of the car. It turned out to be Old Master Fu. This was the grandfather of his future daughter-in-law. No matter how urgent the matter was, Commander-in-Chief Xia stopped at this moment and immediately walked over. Sir, the armed policeman heard the voice and saw a general coming over. He immediately saluted while supporting Old Master Fu. Old Master Fu didn't immediately recognize who it was, and because it was dark outside, the light was dim. Old Master Fu heard someone walking towards him, but he didn't see clearly who it was. Sir, I'm the third son of the old master at home. My name is Xia Xinhui. In the face of this meritorious minister of the country, as a general, Commander-in-Chief Xia also bowed slightly to show his respect. He whispered an order to his guards, and the guards returned to the courtyard house. Commander-in-Chief Xia quickly walked over. At the same time, he naturally helped Old Master Fu from the armed policeman and walked home. Old Master Fu immediately knew who it was after hearing the introduction. He laughed loudly and said in a strong and powerful voice, You're Yuan's father, right? Good. You've taken over the position of your old master, good. Amazing. Your family Xia is getting stronger and stronger with each generation. Father Fu didn't know that he already had a future son-in-law, but Old Master Fu had long known that he had a future grandson-in-law. This time, he came back not only to celebrate his brother's birthday, but also to let the two families interact. You flatter me. Be careful of the stairs. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been praised, took good care of the old man and reminded him to be careful of his feet. Family Xia had always guarded the family Xia's ancestral home, which had a history of more than 100 years. Master Xia and the old madam had gotten married here and had children there. It was also Xia Jinyuan's childhood paradise. After crossing the threshold, the old man looked at the place he had visited decades ago and sighed. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all. It's still the same as it was decades ago. The height of the threshold is the same as before. His wise and peaceful gaze landed on an old pomegranate tree in the corner of the courtyard. Old Master Fu could clearly see that the tree was covered with pomegranates because of the colorful lights that were wrapped around the tree. This tree is still here. When your father knew that I was in trouble, he plucked half of the pomegranates from the tree and stuffed them all into my wife's bag. In a flash, half the world has passed. Old Fu, you've really become Old Fu now. The same vigorous voice of an old man came from the side. Master Xia, who was wearing a traditional Chinese tang suit with the word longevity on the bottom, walked over from the stairs of the main hall. Master Xia, who had just returned to the banquet, received the news from the guard. How could he still sit and wait? He immediately walked out with his walking stick. When he saw the figure standing in the middle of the courtyard, Master Xia laughed even louder. Old Fu was in his prime years, full of scholarly spirit and full of vigor. In the blink of an eye, "Ha, you have a walking stick, and I have a walking stick. When we meet again, my hair is white and I can't even walk steadily." Chapter 27:13. When old Master Fu heard the voice, he knew who was talking to him even before he turned around. The voice was old, but it was still as cheerful and optimistic as he remembered. He turned around and saw an old friend walking towards him. He looked at the walking stick in his old friend's hand and laughed. You and I are about the same. In the blink of an eye, half a century has passed. You are old, I am old, and the group of radishes around you have all started their own families. Old, the young Commander Yin Kuei was also old. Look at his hair, it was all white just like him. We have been apart for 52 years, Commander Yin Kuei. I can only feel a sense of familiarity from your eyes. Old Master Fu saw his old friend walking over and hurried over to greet him. Old Master Fu was already 70 years old when he retired from his post. If it were not for the Research Institute's insistence on not allowing Old Master Fu to continue working like this, Old Master Fu might have worked until he was 80 years old. He retired at the age of 70 and lived in the capital until he was 75 years old. It was also the country and the Research Institute's insistence that he return to Danguei Garden to retire. After returning to the capital, he did not have any leisure time. From time to time, he would attend academic meetings, and sometimes he would go to classes. Later, due to health reasons, Old Master Fu rarely left Danguei Garden and never contacted Master Xia. Master Xia did not know that Old Master Fu had returned to the capital. He only knew that when he was still in the army, Old Master Fu had sent someone to inquire about him. It was not convenient for him to leave his address, so they did not contact each other for decades. Now that they were reunited after 52 years, there was no estrangement. With just a few words, they had already supported each other. Commander-in-Chief Xia needed to hurry back to the military headquarters. Seeing that the two old men had already started chatting, he left quietly with the guards. After walking out of the courtyard, he hurriedly got into the car and rushed back to the military headquarters. In the courtyard house, the two elders stood together under the pomegranate tree. Old Master Xia looked up at the pomegranate tree that was once again full of fruit. His eyes were filled with memories of the past. This tree, I've told you before, it was personally planted by my father when I was born. Now, my father has passed away 51 years ago, and you and I are both old. At the mention of Old Master Xia, who had passed away half a century ago, Old Master Fu sighed. That year, when I was about to leave, the bettered Old Master Fu told me that the other half of the light is always darkness. Now, I'm standing in the darkness. Only by constantly rushing forward can I reach the light and realize my dream. He also told me to look for him if I had any difficulties. You gave my old madam a pomegranate, but I don't know when Old Master gave me a gold bar. Sure lie, it's all thanks to this gold bar that I managed to survive. At that time, the family Xia was still a wealthy family. They could easily take out 10 gold bars, let alone one. Unfortunately, the young Old Master refused. In the end, the Old Master of the Xia family secretly stuffed a gold bar into the Old Master's mouth. Only then did the Old Master of the Xia family survive many difficulties. As they recalled the past, The eyes of the two old men who had experienced many hardships couldn't help but moisten. Look at this tree. It is still full of fruit after half a century. When it is ripe, I will ask someone to pick half of it and send it to you. Master Xia patted the thick trunk of the pomegranate tree. In the future, I will give you half of it every year. When one was old, one would often think of the past. The two old men became good friends in the prime of their lives, but in the blink of an eye, they became white-haired old men. Chapter 27:14. After entering the main hall and taking a seat, old Master Fu met all the members of the Xia family. Seeing that his old friend's birthday actually required 3 tables to sit down, and that there would be many juniors coming, old Master Fu felt at ease. He knew everything about family Xia, so he was assured that his granddaughter would marry into the family. Even after 100 years, he would leave with peace of mind. Master Xia looked at his old friend's smiling face and looked at his family members. He couldn't help but sigh when he thought of his old friend's family matters. The Fu family was a little cold. Even though old Master Fu's granddaughter had been found, it was still cold. The two families were going to be in-laws. Since the Fu family was cold, why not let his old friend move in? As this thought flashed through his mind, Master Xia laughed and said, "It's too cold for you to live alone in Dangui Garden. Why don't you move in with me? At least we can take care of each other. I've kept the room you used to live in. I didn't make a guest room. The furnishings inside are still the same as before. I even kept the big desk you used to draw on. Every few years, I'll reapply tung oil, and it'll be as good as new. After you move in, it'll save you a lot of trouble, and you won't have to run around. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That's great." Old Master Fu purposely chose today for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to catch up with his old friend. Second, he wanted to see if family Xia had any intentions. Although old Xia's grandson had mentioned it to him in advance, and the elders in the family were very agreeable to it. They even hoped that the 2 of them would get married soon. However, he couldn't rest assured if he didn't come over to check on the situation. Now that his body had recovered, he didn't have the lethargic aura of an old man anymore. Therefore, he chose to come uninvited at night. When he heard his old friend mention the 2 juniors, there was a natural intimacy in his tone and a deep smile in his eyes that were more intimidating than youth. Old Master Fu knew that his old friend really liked his granddaughter. Although the suggestion was good, it was impossible. "Thank you for your kindness. It wasn't easy for me to get used to living in Dangui Garden. If I suddenly move to another place, I'm really not used to it. Let the 2 of them make the arrangements. We 2 old fellows will just watch and won't cause trouble for them." After the old man finished speaking, Master Xia smiled and gestured with his hand. You're still as stubborn as when you were young. Back then, my father wanted to stay with me, but you refused and insisted on leaving. You're already so old, but you're still so stubborn. It's fine if you don't want to stay here. While the 2 of us are in good health, we should come out more often." "Old Fu, although I haven't met your granddaughter yet, in my heart, I've already decided that your granddaughter is our family Xia's daughter-in-law. You can't take advantage of your seniority to stand out and make things worse." Before he could finish, Master Xia laughed loudly and said, "That grandson of mine is the 6th in the family. In my family, we don't care about men or women's generation. We all rank according to age. 6th brother. I dare to say this in front of so many grandchildren in the family. Among the grandchildren, my wife and I dote on him the most. This kid is smart, hardworking, and can control the situation. He has my demeanor in the past. You've also seen it. His character doesn't need me, his grandfather, to praise him. There's really nothing to nitpick about him. He's very thorough in all aspects of his conduct. Both of them are soldiers. I heard from his father that the 2 of them did the same work in the army. They have a common language and can understand each other. Old Fu, our family Xia, and the Fu family are still destined to become in-laws." Chapter 27:15. The old man had a good impression of Xia Jinyuan. When Xiao Xia entered the family, I felt that he looked familiar. Later, when I asked him, I knew that he was really your grandson. None of the men from the family Xia have bad characters. I believe that. But I believe that you also know that my fate with my granddaughter was shallow in the beginning. Now that I've finally found her, old Xia, I have to listen to her and spoil her. Otherwise, my heart will be very empty. I won't interfere with her matters. Everything should be based on her happiness. As her grandfather, I will definitely support her in whatever she wants to do. Old Xia, whether or not we can become in-laws, I can't make the decision. Her father can't make the decision either. It's up to her. As for you, don't worry. I won't stop or interfere. If the two of them can continue to be together, it's their fate and also their blessing. Marriage is predestined. Whether or not they can continue to be together will depend on the two of them in the future. We shouldn't interfere and just watch. With the old man's words, Master Xia felt confident. He smiled and said to his eldest son, Xia Jinyuan's uncle, Xia Onghua, who had been accompanying him all this time, "Go and call old San over. Let him toast to the old man." After the toast, it could be considered that they had a good relationship. Xin Hui had an urgent matter to attend to in the military and has been gone for a while. I'll toast to the old man on behalf of Xin Hui. Xia Onghua was the leader of the Ministry of National Defense. He was already 66 years old and would retire at the end of the year. Master Xia was already used to Commander-in-Chief Xia leaving midway, but he still explained to the old man, sometimes military matters come and go as they wish. I'm already used to it. When the father and son are together, I'll personally bring them to Dangue Garden to visit you. Today, let my eldest son, Onghua, toast to you on behalf of the family. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for them. Don't be polite. Back then, my father wanted to adopt you as his son, but you were afraid that you would implicate my family and refused. Now I'm glad that my father didn't take you as his adopted son. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any marriage between the two of us. Leader Xia had already filled the old man's glass. He was as respectful as Commander-in-Chief Xia in front of the country's officials. Old sir, here's a toast to you. If you need anything in the future, feel free to call any of us. Regardless of whether we can become in-laws in the future, with your relationship with my father, you are our family. With family Xia's enthusiasm, old Master Fu was very satisfied with this trip. Before they left, the two elders even agreed to climb Xiangshan Mountain together. At this time, Commander-in-Chief Xia had already spoken to the person in charge of the Forest Armed Police who was in charge of supplying supplies. He did not ask the Forest Armed Police to immediately enter the mountain to rescue them. Instead, he asked the Forest Armed Police not to send troops for the time being and to wait for news. The Snowfield Brigade was the top special forces in the country, and the soldiers in it were the best soldiers in the special forces. How could something happen to them so easily? There would be certain signs before a mudslide happened, and it was impossible for them, who were familiar with surviving in the wild and had gone through layers of tests, to not have noticed it beforehand. He believed that this kind of thing could be avoided by every special forces soldier. Inform everyone to be on standby. Even helicopters are not allowed to enter the mountain to observe, so as to avoid accidents. Inform the Satellite Control Center to arrange for the personnel on duty. If there is any new news, report to me immediately. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not panic because of the loss of contact with the entire team. He was the commander-in-chief. If he panicked because of this, he would not have been able to climb to the position he was in tonight. Chapter 27:16. Commander-in-Chief Xia was naturally worried about the safety of all his team members, but he believed in the ability of all the Special Forces soldiers. These soldiers had the courage of wolves, the agility of cheetahs, and the ferocity of tigers. They were the top Special Forces soldiers of our country, experienced hundreds of battles, and tempered by the flames of war to get to where they were today. It could be said that wherever there was danger, they would be there. Commander-in-Chief Xia was confident that they would be fine. Even if something happened, it would be a small matter such as bruises, falls, and other minor injuries that would not hurt the muscles or bones. In fact, the armed police in Zhangchuan Forest had already prepared their helicopters, and the armed police in the mountains were also in place, waiting for the order from the military headquarters to take off immediately. Not going? How can that be? When the political commissar heard the latest order from the regiment commander, he was full of doubts. The mountain collapsed, and we lost contact with the personnel. We don't know the number of people inside. If we don't go now, what if they have been waiting for us to rescue them? Human lives are at stake. We can't be careless. How can we not go? The political commissar was very anxious. He still remembered the army soldier who talked to him some time ago. Ding Weizhong, the supreme commander of the armed police in charge of patrolling Zhangchuan Forest, said in a low voice, "It's not something we can decide." The military headquarters called directly. When they said the name, my back immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Military headquarters? Who? You broke out in a cold sweat. Commander-in-Chief Xia called me personally and ordered me to be on standby. There is no need to go immediately. Ding Weizhong took out a pack of cigarettes from the drawer. He did not light one with a lighter, but put it under his nose and sniffed. He was not addicted to smoking, but he used to like smoking a few cigarettes. After being transferred here, as a regiment commander, he had to quit smoking first. The political commissar, sitting opposite him, did not speak for a long time. After a while, he whispered, "Are you sure? Did you hear it wrong?" "No, it's Commander-in-Chief Xia, the Commander-in-Chief, who gave the order himself." Ding Weizhong sniffed the cigarette fiercely and immediately put it back in the drawer. "Let the detachment be on standby. If anything happens, we can set off immediately." "Okay." The political commissar nodded and frowned. Even the commander-in-chief gave the order himself. "What kind of troop do you think is going into the mountain? Is it really an ordinary troop? Why do I feel like something is wrong?" After he finished speaking, there was silence in the office. Then Captain Ding sighed and said, "The red header document that our unit received said that it was an ordinary unit. Regardless of whether there is a problem or not, the unit that entered the mountain was just an ordinary unit that had completed the wilderness survival training." "Okay, you can rest in the office tonight. I will also go back to the office to rest. Be alert, don't miss any calls." The political commissar did not ask any more questions. No matter what unit it was, it had nothing to do with them. It was still raining heavily outside. After closing the window, they could still hear the pitter-patter of the rain. The political commissar stood up and looked at the dark, rainy night outside. His eyes became a little solemn. The mountain has collapsed in the depths of the mountain. The people outside should have left by now. Make a call to the village outside to ask about the situation. I don't think the weather will recover anytime soon. There's no electricity in the village. The situation should be fine. I better make a call just in case. Regiment Commander Ding also looked at the sky outside. It was dark, heavy, and torrential. He felt depressed. All the troops have to be concentrated. Leave only the detachment to enter the mountain. Chapter 27:17. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan ran as fast as they could towards the dense forest. Behind them, a black bear followed them closely for almost an hour. The bear followed them wherever they went. "No, if we keep running like this, Captain Xia, we won't have any energy left. If a natural disaster happens, we won't even have the energy to escape. We have to lure it away." Yi Jian ran until she was panting heavily. Even her arms were trembling from running. "It's following our scent. It's hard to get rid of it." Xia Jinyuan could still keep running. But just as Yi Qian said, if they kept running, they would run out of energy and it would be difficult to escape. The worst thing was that they might encounter a natural disaster. If they ran until they were exhausted, it would be useless no matter how strong they were. Crawling under a rock, Xia Jinyuan looked through his night vision goggles and saw the black bear that had been following them closely. It was roaring in front of them. Its emotions were so violent that it seemed like it would tear anything it touched into pieces. "Qing Yao, climb up, find the devil, and meet up with them. I'll go lure it away now." Xia Jinyuan crawled back from the top of the rock. Drenched, he looked at Yi Qian with a cold expression and suddenly hugged her tightly. "Wait for me to come back." How could Yi Qian agree to let him lure the black bear away alone? Moreover, he couldn't let him go at a time like this. He was the team leader and the commander of the entire training. At the same time, He had to lead the team overseas to participate in the competition. He was also the only Special Forces soldier in the entire team who had gone through the Devil's Week training overseas. He was an outstanding Special Forces soldier that the military had spent countless efforts to cultivate. How could they let him face the current situation? Yi Qian, who was hugged tightly by him, also hugged him tightly. Take care, Captain Xia. Abandoning the pawns to protect the general. This was what she had to do right now. She hugged him tightly again. When Xia Jinyuan let go, Yi Qian grabbed the branch that extended to the rock. Without giving Xia Jinyuan a chance to react, she pulled the branch tight and jumped down from the rock. Hua, 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 hua. The leaves trembled and the tree trunk bent. Xia Jinyuan was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he yelled at the figure that was falling down, Qing Niao. He roared, and the sound of his roar was like a stone shattering the heavens, shaking the surroundings. Wait for me, Captain Xia. After jumping down a mountain, Yi Qian did not even look back as she headed for the top of the rock. She was so agile that she did not give Xia Jinyuan a chance to catch up. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the dark night. Xia Jinyuan clenched his fists so tightly that his veins bulged. He looked at the pouring rain and gritted his teeth so hard that his temples bulged. Qing Yao. He gritted his teeth and spat out these two words. Finally, he headed for the top of the mountain. The rain was so heavy that it was a little scary. It was like pouring water. Li Jinyan raised his head and let the heavy rain wash away the smell of mud in his mouth. The communication system is broken. Z7 said that it will take a while to fix it. The Xiao washed her face in the rain. They had escaped quickly just now. Otherwise, they would have been buried by the collapsed mountain. One washed the mud in his mouth, while the other washed the dirt on his face. Listening to the heavy rain, the atmosphere was so heavy that even breathing was difficult. Every time he took a breath, his heart ached. Chapter 27:18. Li Jinyan pressed down on his earpiece, but there was no sound. During the roll call, only Qing Niao and Q King didn't say anything, which meant that all 13 of them had lost contact with Q King and Qing Niao. Why don't we go back and take a look? The collapsed area is too big, K7 just said. No need to go back, it'll be fine. Before the Xiao could finish, Li Jinyan interrupted him sternly. Just wait here. It'll be fine. Don't forget that Q King is with Qing Niao. That was his sister. How could anything happen to her? Perhaps it was the first time Li Jinyan had yelled at his comrades because of training. The Xiao was stunned for a moment. After a while, he said, I didn't say anything would happen to them. I meant to go back and take a look to reassure myself. Why are you? Why did he seem a little off? He had lost his cool. Sorry, I lost my composure. Li Jinyan quickly realized his gaffe. His jaw tightened as he turned his head. His gaze pierced through the darkness as he looked at his comrade. We can't go back. The rain is too heavy. We can't let our comrade, who has already left the danger zone, take the risk. So, Xia Jinyuan, you better King protect my sister, or else I'll kill you. Li Jinyan grabbed a handful of rainwater and rubbed it on his face. He gritted his teeth, turned around, and walked towards the temporary shelter. The shelter wasn't made of waterproof cloth. It was made of camouflage clothing and branches. The simple shelter that could fit 2 people became Z7 Han Zheng's temporary office. He was in charge of communication, and his expression was tense. The communication device had been hit by a falling rock, and it was too late by the time he went to rescue it. How much longer do you need? Li Jinyan asked as soon as he came in. Han Zheng pursed his lips, his eyes dark. It hit the mainframe. I don't know if it can be fixed, but I'll try my best. If the mainframe couldn't be fixed, they couldn't contact the outside world or receive the location. In this area, even the CPS signal was intermittent. Coupled with the torrential rain, the signal was directly cut off, and there was no way to contact the outside world. Qing Niao and Q King have lost contact. Whether or not you can contact them depends on you, Z7. Li Jinyan's heart sank. He raised his hand and placed it heavily on Han Zheng's shoulder. He didn't move away and said word by word, "I'm counting on you, Z7." The hand on her shoulder felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Han Jing happened to know the relationship between the Demon King and Qing Niao, as well as the relationship between Q King and Qing Niao. Without looking up, he kept his hands busy and nodded. "Okay, I know. Wait for my news." "Okay." After getting a verbal promise, Li Jinyan withdrew his hand and gave Han Jing some space. He didn't notice that Han Jing had already raised his head and was looking at his back with a complicated expression. In the face of natural disasters, the power of humans was especially weak. K7 said that the place where the mountain collapsed was where Q King and Qing Niao appeared. Whether or not they could escape depended on their luck. Staring with bloodshot eyes, Han Jing retracted his gaze and continued to busy himself with the matter at hand. He was in charge of electronic communications. Now that the entire team had lost contact with the outside world, someone had to be responsible for re-establishing communications. This was his responsibility, and it was something he had to do. Usually, they wouldn't be that worried if they lost contact, but there was a natural disaster tonight, and the two of them happened to be at the site of the collapse. Even the strong-willed Special Forces soldiers were worried. Chapter 27:19. No one was in the mood to chat. They used tree branches to build a shelter from the rain for their combat uniforms. They took out a wet mat from their backpacks and laid it on the ground. They took off their military boots and poured the rainwater out of them. They didn't even change their wet socks. They just wrung them dry and put them back on. Then they put on their military boots again. Everyone did their work in silence. No one mentioned the missing Q King and Qing Niao. It was as if the two were still in the team, and there was no need to worry too much. While they were waiting, the ground shook violently again. Everyone rushed out of the shelter and stood in the heavy rain. Their eyes were tense as they looked ahead fiercely. The collapsed corner of the mountain had collapsed for the second time. Motherf asterisk Kerr. Someone raised his hand and shook the leaves around him fiercely. He gritted his teeth and spat out 2 words. There was no news at all, and the second collapse happened. Li Jinyan's eyes were so red that it looked like blood was going to burst out. His hand was tightly gripping a branch of shrub. He wrapped it around his palm a few times and pulled it tightly until the branch was wrapped around his entire palm. It looked like it was going to cut into his flesh. "Rest here." After a long while, he gave the order in a hoarse voice. His cold voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "Qing Niao, his sister. Don't let me down. Don't let Uncle be sad. Don't let Grandpa be sad." Everyone clenched their fists. Everyone wanted to go over and rescue them. However, no one could rescue them at a time like this. "Devil, let me go over." V8 growled. "I can't King rest here. Let me go over. My captain and my comrades are probably waiting for us to go over." Li Jinyan turned his head fiercely. He stared fiercely at V8 and pointed at his heart. "I want to go over more. I King want to go over more. Your captain, your comrades, they are also my comrades. But don't forget who we are. Who we are. We are special forces that the country spent a lot of effort to cultivate. We are the top special forces that the country has high hopes for. We are generation after generation of top special forces. The responsibilities we bear are not meant to be swayed by emotions." The red-eyed V8's chest heaved up and down as if there were waves crashing against the shore in his chest. The rainwater flowed into his eyes, making them even redder and brighter. Who are we? Are we just going to watch our comrades get into trouble? If it was an ordinary citizen who was in trouble tonight, would we still be able to stand by and watch? Is it because of who we are that we can only wait even though we know that our comrades are in danger? He did not yell, but every word that came out of his mouth was filled with even more ferocity than a roar, because every word was filled with an extremely deep sorrow. Fight for the country, fight for the people. If it was an ordinary citizen, we would have done it, because you are a soldier, and you are fighting for the people. Li Jinyan shut his eyes tightly and answered V8 with a heavy voice. And our comrades, they are soldiers. They know what sacrifice is, what is a loss to the country. If something really happened, it would only be the two of them. However, if another comrade returned, it was possible that another comrade would be in trouble. This was what it meant to reduce the rate of sacrifice. This was it. This was a cruel fact that they had to face as soldiers, an unchangeable fact that they had to accept. Chapter 27:20. G3 punched the tree beside him with all his might. Blood flowed out from the back of his hand. After a while, he suppressed the impulse in his heart and said to V8, Q King once said that if he's not around, everyone must listen to the devil's orders. V8, this is an order. A soldier's duty is to obey orders. The entire scene was dead silent. The only sound that could be heard was the short and rapid breaths of every Special Forces soldier. They all understood. The devil wasn't wrong. V8 wasn't wrong either. They weren't wrong. One chose the bigger picture. The other chose to share the joys and sorrows. If the devil wasn't the captain, he would definitely choose to share the joys and sorrows. But he was a captain of the Special Forces, and a commander. As a commander, he had to consider the bigger picture. If he let his comrades take risks at this time, it would be a mistake for him to not understand the bigger picture, disregard the lives of his comrades, and make the wrong decision. He also wanted to find Q King and Qing Niao, but he had to consider the bigger picture. 7 people in this group would represent the country to participate in the competition overseas and secretly learn from the top Special Forces soldiers of each country. If something happened to anyone else, how would he explain it to the country? Time ticked by, and the stalemate lasted for 5 minutes. V8 was the first to turn around, then bent down and entered the low shelter. Let's rest. Maybe the missing comrade will come back soon. Before he could finish his sentence, they heard a rustling sound that was clearly different from the sound of rain hitting leaves. Other than V8, who had already entered the shelter, everyone's eyes lit up as they looked in the direction of the rustling sound. Finally, they saw a shadow moving in the green world. The Snowfield Brigade soldiers were the first to recognize the shadow. G3 yelled towards the leaves 3 meters away from them. Captain! Xia Jinyuan, who was walking in the forest, was waving the leaves that were blocking his path. He paused when he heard the voice. His comrades were in front of him, but he didn't feel the joy of reuniting after losing contact for nearly 3 hours. Soon, he walked in front of his comrades. Even though they were all wearing night vision goggles, he knew that they were looking behind him, waiting for Qing Niao's back to appear. Qing Niao, protect me and lure away the black bear chasing us. I lost contact with her. These few words seemed to have exhausted all of Xia Jinyuan's strength. Everyone's pupils contracted fiercely. Deep in their eyes were extremely shocked. She told me to sacrifice the soldier to save the commander, Xia Jinyuan said again. Hearing his words, the Special Forces soldiers once again clenched their fists. Qing, a female soldier who wasn't afraid of sacrifice and knew the big picture at all times. Sacrificed the soldier to save the commander. She knew King Q's role in the team too well. She knew how much the military had high hopes for King Q, and she knew how much the Shuiyu team needed King Q's leadership. So, she of the danger. Q King, come here. Li Jinyan spoke. The corners of his mouth were pressed very, very low. His handsome face was really like a pile of ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. His cold gaze swept out, and even the breath he exhaled carried an eerie chill. Although his expression was cold, there was a cluster of flames in his eyes, as if he wanted to burn everything in front of him. Xia Jinyuan, who was covered in mud, didn't say a word and left with Li Jinyan. He knew why Li Jinyan asked him to go alone. He knew. Chapter 27:21. Both of them left with a murderous aura. No matter how heavy the rain was, it couldn't wash away their murderous aura. Big Shark and the others wanted to follow them. They were worried that the two captains would have a conflict. They didn't understand. Why was the Demon King so angry when Qing Niao from the Snowfield Brigade didn't come back. That expression, it was as if he wanted to swallow Q King alive. Something wasn't right, and it wasn't normal. It was as if there was something they didn't know. Only the Demon King and Q King knew. Don't go. The Special Forces from the Snowfield Brigade, led by G3, blocked Big Shark and the others. We can't interfere with this. Let them solve it themselves. Don't worry, Big Shark. They are captains. They know what they're doing. But Big Shark and the others were worried because they had never seen the Demon King lose his composure. No buts. Trust us. We can guarantee that the Demon King will be fine. But we can't guarantee that Q King will be fine. Big Shark rubbed his face and frowned at G3. This is the first time we have seen the Demon King lose control. We are worried that the Demon King will do something to Q King. F***CK. There was really no way to guarantee that. G3 looked at K7 and the others. Everyone looked at each other. What was going to happen later? They couldn't guarantee that they would be fine. The sound of leaves rustling could be heard from the front. Everyone's face tensed up. They all knew that this sound was the sound of fighting. It sounds fierce. Are we really not going to look? Big Shark couldn't help but gulp. The heavy rain couldn't cover the sound of fighting. This. How fierce and fierce was this? Qing Niao is missing. Why is our Demon King so anxious? The big merman's heart was beating like a drum, but he tightened the corners of his mouth. When he heard the Devil King's deep roar from the front, the big merman's pupils suddenly shrunk, as if he had just discovered a great secret. He exclaimed, "Is the Devil King really dating Qing Niao? Is the Demon King angry because Q King didn't bring back Qing Niao?" G3 and the others, who knew what was going on, were so shocked by the Big Mermaid's guesses that their mouths twitched. What was he guessing? The Demon King and Qing Niao were brother and sister. How could he make the Demon King and Qing Niao a couple? Meanwhile, the T6 combatant had a strange look on his face. There was no smoke without fire. He still remembered that Q King had hurried over to the naval base in the south during the summer break last year. Could it be that the Demon King revealed his interest in Qing Niao in front of his comrades of the Storm Commandos before he knew that she was his sister? Thinking of this, the T6 combatant got goosebumps from his own guess. He must have been overthinking things. G3 patted the Big Mermaid on the shoulder and said in a serious tone, "That's not true. The Demon King does like Qing Niao, but it's not the love between a man and a woman like you think. There are other ties between the Demon King and Qing Niao. Blood ties could also be considered ties, right? There were other ties." The members of the Storm Commandos were even more confused and confused. Now was not the time to think about other things. It was better to think about, when were they going to end their fight? This was the first time they had seen the Demon King lose his composure. They were all worried that something would happen to Q King. The Snowfield Brigade members were also worried about whether something would happen to Xia Jinyuan. However, no one went over to persuade him and just waited where they were. When Q King left just now, he had used his eyes to tell them not to follow him. Then they would just have to wait. Chapter 27-22. No matter how angry the Demon King was, as the captain, he knew his limits. Moreover, Q King had clearly told the Demon King that Qing Niao did what she did because she wanted to sacrifice herself to protect the commander. Qing Niao knew how important Q King was, so she would rather leave the danger to herself and protect Q King. If it were any of their comrades, they would have made the same choice as Qing Niao. Li Jinyan naturally understood, but understanding was one thing, and being able to accept it was another. He punched Xia Jinyuan in the abdomen. With bloodshot eyes, he grabbed Xia Jinyuan's collar and growled, "Xia Jinyuan, is this how you F***ing take care of my sister? You took care of her until she went missing?" This time, Xia Jinyuan didn't fight back. He didn't have the right to fight back. However, he didn't like what Li Jinyan said. He glared at him and growled, "She didn't go missing. She didn't go missing. I'm here, you're here, and she still has family here. She finally found her family, so she won't throw them away." Li Jinyan, she didn't go missing. Xia Jinyuan almost shouted the last sentence. He could hit him or scold him, but he definitely couldn't say that Qing Yao went missing. Absolutely not. You still know that she just found her family. How dare you let her face danger alone? Li Jinyan, who had never lost his composure, glared at Xia Jinyuan as if he wanted to burn him to ashes. How could you? Let her take the risk alone. How could you do this? So what if black bears are protected animals? You can shoot at any time if your life is in danger. You can shoot at any time. According to Article 341 of our country's criminal law, anyone who illegally hunts or kills precious or endangered wildlife under state protection, or illegally purchases, transports, or sells precious or endangered wildlife under state protection, or its products shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not more than 5 years or criminal detention, and shall also be fined. If the circumstances are serious, they shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not less than 5 years and not more than 10 years, and shall also be fined. If the circumstances are especially serious, they shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not less than 10 years, and shall also be fined or have their property confiscated. Xia Jinyuan's voice was hoarse as he slowly explained the animal protection regulations in the criminal law. Demon King, Qing Yao went to stall the black bear alone. My heart ached more than yours. She needed a reason to kill the bear. When her life was in danger, she could kill the bear. Qing Yao was an emergency, so she didn't have to bear legal responsibility. But we only have blanks in our hands. They were all blanks. Shoot? I want to shoot. I want to shoot. As he spoke, Xia Jinyuan was also shouting. One was Yi Qian's brother, and the other was Yi Qian's beloved man. Both of them loved Yi Qian deeply and would use their lives to protect Yi Qian. Li Jinyan knew very well that Yi Qian had made the right choice, but he couldn't accept the reality in front of him. When he heard the words blanks, Li Jinyan's anger rose another level, and the panic in his heart soared in a straight line. Xia Jinyuan didn't fight back and only blocked with his hands. In fact, he also wanted to fight to vent the panic in his heart. They didn't fight for long. After about 10 minutes, Li Jinyan withdrew his fist, leaned against a tree, and said to Xia Jinyuan, who didn't fight back, "You found my sister. You don't know how many lifetimes of good fortune you've accumulated to find my sister." Most women subconsciously look for their boyfriends to avoid danger when they're in danger, but my sister? She even rushed out to protect you. Xia Jinyuan, my sister is such a good girl. I'm really unwilling to let you win her heart and marry her. Chapter 27-23. Li Jinyan did not say these words out of anger, nor out of impulse, but because he truly believed so. The rain was so heavy that their faces were completely blurred, and they could no longer see each other's facial features clearly. The only thing they could feel was that each other's aura was extremely heavy. Li Jinyan, who rarely spoke at length, fixed his gaze on Xia Jinyuan, whose aura was dark and gloomy. His voice sounded as if he had exhausted all his strength and was full of fatigue. She was so good that she was willing to sacrifice her own life to protect you. Xia Jinyuan, how could you be so lucky? My uncle just found my sister, and my grandfather just had hope. Our family hasn't truly reunited yet, and we haven't brought my sister to my grandmother's grave to offer incense. Neither have we gone to my mother's grave to offer incense. Xia Jinyuan, if something happened to my sister, would you be able to live in peace for the rest of your life? She did make the right choice. You are the commander and captain of the Snowfield Brigade, and you're going to lead this special forces team to another peak. The country spent so much effort to cultivate you, and no one wants anything to happen to you. I feel the same way, and so does my sister. It's precisely because she made the right choice that my heart aches for her. I feel sorry for my sister, and I feel sorry for her for being so foolish and fearless. Xia Jinyuan listened quietly. Because of Li Jinyan's words, his eyes were as deep as the ocean, and the deepest part of his eyes was raging with a violent storm. She's so good, so fearless, and she can't bear to leave all of us. So I believe that Qing Yao will be fine. She won't get into trouble so easily. Now that you've hit and scolded her, it's time to go back and rest. Xia Jinyuan, whose aura was dark and gloomy, took a deep breath of the damp air mixed with rainwater. He held his aching abdomen and walked step by step toward the temporary camp for the night. "Where are you going to find my sister?" Li Jinyan's hoarse voice came from behind him. "Here, there is no sister, no lover, demon king. There is only Qing Yao." Xia Jinyuan stopped in his tracks. Without turning around, he replied in a deep voice, "The moment Qing Yao made her choice, she was protecting me as a soldier. So, there's only Qing Yao here, and I'm the captain of the Snowfield Brigade. I'm the person she's protecting with her life. Demon King, I will go back to find my comrade in arms. I will go back to find Qing Yao. But not now." She had gone through all the dangers just to get him out of danger. If he went back, he would only disappoint her and waste her efforts. "Demon King, do you know why Qing Yao chose me?" Li Jinyan's eyes turned cold at his words, and he clenched his fists. "Why? We both understand each other. We both know the intentions behind each other's actions. We both cherish each other's decisions and understand the meaning behind each other's decisions. Demon King, when Qing Yao was 14 years old, her figure was already in my heart. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 7 years. I've known her for 7 years, accompanied her for 7 years, and understood her for 7 years. I know Qing Yao better than your uncle. I want to go back to find her more than anyone else. Every minute I stay here is torture, but I understand her. It's precisely because I understand and know that I can't go back now." Chapter 27-24. Xia Jinyuan didn't stay in the same spot. He lifted his leg and walked away with steady and powerful steps, leaving Li Jinyan speechless for a long time. You might say that I'm cold and callous, or that I don't deserve to be Qing Yao's boyfriend, but I don't care. I only care about how she sees me, thinks of me, and treats me. What other people think has nothing to do with me. Li Jinyan didn't move. He kept leaning against the rough trunk of the tree. Even though Xia Jinyuan's back was out of his sight, he continued to stare at the spot where Xia Jinyuan's back had disappeared. After some time, Li Jinyan's tall body moved. His thin, sharp lips were pursed into a straight line. He didn't understand the relationship between his sister and Xia Jinyuan, but Xia Jinyuan said that he had known his sister for 7 years. He knew his sister better than their family. This was an indisputable fact. Why did he hit him? The reason was simple. He had substituted Xia Jinyuan's other identity into the training. Xia Jinyuan was his sister's boyfriend. At the same time, he was also the leader of a special forces team. His safety was crucial. His sister. No, Qing Yao had made the best choice. As a team leader, he should be cheering for such a soldier. His sister had made such a choice because she knew her own identity. She was very clear about the difference between her identity in training and her real life. She was much more clear-headed than her brother. Q King wasn't wrong. His comrades had risked their lives to protect him. How could he ignore their efforts and return immediately? It was said that women were more emotional than men, but Qing Yao didn't seem emotional at all. She was only calm. "Qing Yao, we are all waiting for your return. Please come back safely." Devil Li Jinyan didn't stay in the dark forest alone. He walked out step by step with determination. He had to trust Qing Yao like Q King. He had to trust that she could do it. He had to trust that she would come back. Her comrades, lover, and family were all waiting for her. How could she not come back? Yi Qian, who was covered in mud, had one hand on the tree trunk and the other on her knees. She bent over and gasped for breath. Her hands were trembling. Her lips were trembling. Her entire body was trembling. He was so tired from running that his entire body was exhausted. His legs felt like they were filled with lead, and he didn't even have the strength to lift his feet and take half a step. No, she had to rest for a while. She had to rest for a while. Yi Qian, who had shot the black bear at close range with a blank bullet, slid down the tree slowly and sat down on the ground. As soon as she sat down, she immediately crawled on all fours towards the darkness in front of her. That black mass was none other than the black bear that Yi Qian had taken out at close range with a blank bullet. The danger range of a blank bullet was within a range of 5 meters, but she was within a range of 3 meters. She continuously fired at the black bear's head. In the end, the black bear was knocked down, and she was completely drained of energy. Big guy, you shouldn't have chased after us soldiers. We knew that you were a protected animal, so Captain Xia and I gave in to you the whole way. But you just had to be so persistent. Yi Qian climbed to the black bear's position. She boldly patted the black bear's strong body, then curled up into the black bear's belly. She planned to rest for a while and gather her strength before coming back up. Who knew that she would end up resting for a few hours? Chapter 27-25. The black bear was very large. Although it smelled strongly, its belly was soft and warm. Yi Qian, who was sleeping on it, closed her eyes and immediately opened them. She raised her hand to look at her watch. The dim blue light showed the time. It was already past 3 in the morning. No wonder she was so tired that her legs were trembling. She had been dealing with the black bear for almost 3 hours. She had a chance to finish off the black bear in 2 hours. She had even loaded a blank cartridge. But in the end, she saw a tree suddenly tilt down. Her eyes saw it, and her body reacted by grabbing her rifle and running. She was only 4 meters away from the black bear. When she ran, the black bear roared and chased after her. She could even smell the unpleasant smell of the black bear in the damp air. She was worried that the area would collapse, so she didn't set up another ambush. When she ran to the mountainous area where they had previously trained, she was familiar with the terrain and had set up a second ambush. 3 hours. The black bear chased her for 3 hours, and she ran for 3 hours. Yi Qian took off her helmet and kissed the emblem on it. She smiled and said softly, "Captain Xia, you should be able to find me, right?" After saying that softly, Yi Qian hugged her helmet and fell into a deep sleep in less than 3 minutes. She needed to recover her energy and adjust her body's condition to complete the training that was less than a week away. Yi Qian could sleep in the mountains, and she slept very soundly. She wasn't afraid of any poisonous snakes, insects, or rats at all. It didn't matter if the rain was heavy. When a person was tired, the taut string in their heart would relax. No matter how harsh the environment was, Yi Qian could still fall asleep. Besides, Yi Qian had already tried sleeping alone in the deep mountains and forests. She even spent the spring festival alone in the deep mountains and forests. To be able to withstand the test and endure loneliness, Yi Qian had to get used to and accept it. She had to treat it as a necessary part of her military career. In the middle of the night, the torrential rain began to fall, and the sound of the raindrops hitting the leaves became much softer. Han Zheng, who was nestled in the shelter, suddenly shouted when his comrades were half asleep, "Okay, the communication is done." Xia Jinyuan, who was sleeping closest to him with his legs curled up, forgot that he was nestled in the simple shelter he built with his camouflage uniform. When he heard Han Zheng's shout of joy, he immediately jumped up and slammed his forehead into the tree trunk supporting his sleeves. There was a loud crash, and the trunks supporting his camouflage uniform were all overturned. The shelter, which could still be used to shelter him from the rain, was tilted askew and lost its function. Xia Jinyuan grabbed the camouflage uniform that was blocking his way and pulled it with force. The camouflage uniform was pulled away by him and hung loosely on the leaves. He took a step forward and walked to Han Zheng's side. Turning on the light, he lowered his head, squatted down, and used the light to shine on Han Zheng's face, who was re-establishing communication. Then, he glanced at Han Zheng's military portable notebook. Seeing the strings of codes on it, he said in a deep voice, "How long will it take to completely restore communication?" "Give me 5 minutes. I just found out that we've lost contact with the satellite. If the military knows about our situation, they're probably waiting for a letter." Han Zheng's slender fingers tapped on the keyboard. His speed was very fast, so fast that no one could see clearly how he typed out string after string of codes. Chapter 27-26. Xia Jinyuan looked at the time and was about to get up when Li Jinyan, who was camping a little further away, walked over. Li Jinyan walked over. His tall figure blended into the night. Shrouded in a cold aura, he walked straight to Xia Jinyuan with a solemn and dignified feeling that only existed in the night. I just heard Z7 say that the communication channel is fixed, but I can't get into the channel to contact Qing Yao. His voice was so hoarse that Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but frown. He said that the communication device has been fixed and is now re-establishing communication. We have also lost contact with the military and are re-establishing communication with both sides. He got up and said, "You don't seem to be doing well. My tonsils are on fire and I have a low fever. I took some medicine." Li Jinyan squatted down as he spoke. He wanted to go in and check on the situation, but when he saw the pile of communication equipment and Z7, it was already very crowded, so he followed Xia Jinyuan and squatted outside. Should I contact the military first or Qing Yao first? Synchronize the communication. I have 2 terminals, so there won't be any conflict. Z7 Han Zheng replied. Then, a horizontal bar appeared on the laptop screen that represented the progress of the connection. As the green bar grew larger, Han Zheng stared at the screen and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Communication was successfully established. Reporting. Latest news from Tibet. The technical soldier in the duty room immediately reported the latest news they received. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been in the military office all this time, hung up the phone and leaned back in his office chair. After a while, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Finally, there was news. Then, Commander-in-Chief Xia directly called Major General Yang. Confirm the condition of all of them and whether any of them are injured. There are still 10 days until July 26th. None of them can have any accidents. Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't keep an eye on the training every day, nor could he intervene all the time. He would only appear if there was a serious situation. After all, Major General Yang was the main person in charge of the Snowfield Brigade. Major General Yang, who also stayed in the office overnight, had a serious expression on his face as he replied to Commander-in-Chief Xia. Other than Qing Yao, who didn't return to the team, the rest of the team members are safe and sound. Qing Yao didn't return to the team. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly became serious. What's going on? Why is Qing Yao the only one who didn't return to the team? She and Q were to observe the battle tonight. To follow K7, they encountered the bear and then the mountain collapse. The bear instinctively ran into the dense forest area. Qing and Q King and Qing chose the same direction and to the same direction. And the mountain collapse caused the bear to become irritable. Q King is someone who has climbed over piles of corpses. He has a murderous aura and a vicious aura. The irritable bear targeted Q King. Qing Yao sacrificed herself to protect her commander. When Q King suggested that he go alone to lure the bear away, she directly jumped down from the rock to lure the bear away. The blood on her hands wasn't as heavy as Q King's, but in order to lure away the danger, she might have directly charged at the bear. She purposely made the bear think that she was attacking it. Major General Yang, who already knew the details, said each word with a heavy heart. He was moved by Qing Yao's understanding and was even more moved by Qing Yao's big picture. This female soldier was really full of surprises. Commander-in-Chief Xia's face was a little gloomy. He, who was already an impressive military figure, was now sitting alone in the office, making the space seem cramped. Chapter 27-27. It's now 3:20 in the morning. Did they say when they're going to look for Qing Yao? Commander-in-Chief Xia's voice was sharp. Tell them that they must find Qing Yao. I've already given the order. As soon as the rain stops and the sun comes up, tell them to look for Qing Yao immediately. Major General Yang nodded. Qing Yao was the only female soldier in the Snowfield Brigade. He had also watched her walk step by step. If something happened to her, it would not only be a loss to the country, but it would also be a pain in everyone's heart. In the mountains at the border of Tibet and Sichuan, Xia Jinyuan spread out a waterproof military map. This was a map with landforms and topography. He opened the coordinates that he had set for himself before and quickly found the exact location on the map where he and Yi Jian had separated. This is the place where Qing Niao and I were separated. The difference is no more than 2 meters. If we head up from here, it will be the place where we expected to arrive. It's less than 400 meters away from our current campsite. The landslide is in this area. His slender finger that had been soaked in the rain pointed to a spot on the map, and then to another more detailed terrain map. This area is 4 kilometers away from where Qing Niao and I were separated. Therefore, Qing Niao will not go there. Knowing that it was dangerous, no one would go there. Then, Xia Jinyuan pointed to another area. Qing Niao's location is quite accurate. It's 8 kilometers from where we were separated to where we were previously trained. This area is also densely forested and is far away from the landslide. Therefore, search this area. He spoke with certainty, as if he could already see Yi Qian waiting for him at the place where they had once trained together. The water ghosts of the storm commandos looked at each other. There was uncertainty in each other's eyes. Why are you so sure? Go from where you and Qing Niao were separated to here. Li Jinyan pointed at the terrain map. His finger that had also been soaked in the rain until it was white and wrinkled stopped at a spot. It's closer here, but it's also further away from the landslide. The Demon King asked the question that was on the minds of all the water ghosts. Xia Jinyuan looked up and fixed his gaze on Li Jinyan. Because she's a Qing Niao and I'm her captain. Even if this place is close, Qing Niao won't choose it. She will walk the path that we walked together and stand at a place where I can easily find her and wait for me. So, no matter how close this place is, it is not her choice. This answer, if it weren't for the fact that Qing Niao had yet to return, every single bachelor present would have been hurt in their hearts. I believe in our captain's judgment. We've been on several missions with Qing Niao. One of them is in the east, and the other is in the west. They'll meet again eventually. I also believe that, Demon King, there must be a Qing Niao here. We can't delay any longer. We'll have to leave when the sun rises. The comrades of the Snowfield Brigade spoke up for their captain. Xia Jinyuan raised his hand to stop his comrade from speaking. Devil, I trust my intuition. She must be waiting for me here. His little fox was very smart, very stubborn, and very cautious. She knew very well that she would lose contact with them. She also knew that he, who had protected her with his own life, would definitely look for her. Considering all these factors, he was very sure that his little fox must be in this area. Okay. Li Jinyan, who had been watching him for a long time, nodded. There was no reason not to trust a man who had known his little sister for 7 years, accompanied her for 7 years, and waited for her to grow up. Chapter 27-28. Since the Devil King nodded, the other water ghosts also agreed. Then, Xia Jinyuan divided the search area. What I'm most worried about now is whether Qing Niao was injured when she lured the black bear away, especially her legs. If her legs were injured, she would choose to shoot the black bear with blank bullets at close range. So, this is our main search route. Young Sparrow Hawk. Here, Young Sparrow Hawk, who was a scout, responded. Xia Jinyuan looked up at him. You're in charge of searching for details. Pay attention to the footprints. Roger, after receiving his comrade's reply, Xia Jinyuan said to everyone, check if the surrounding branches have been broken or if there are any traces of being stepped on. There's one more thing to mention. Qing Niao lured the black bear away at night, which means that she might have taken a detour. Although the forest where we train is dense, if she takes a detour, all of us will have to follow her footsteps and waste time. Let's look for Qing Niao's footsteps first. If she ran in the direction I speculated, everyone can continue to move forward together. If we split up, Xia Jinyuan paused for a moment, then turned to Li Jinyan and said, you're in charge of following Yi Qian's footsteps, and I'll lead a team to speculate the location. Li Jinyan nodded in agreement. It was a safe and reliable method. After the detailed arrangements were completed, all that was left was to wait for dawn. The campsite needed to be tidied up. They removed the camouflage that was temporarily used to block the rain from the branches and put away the anti-moisture mats. Then, they cleaned up the nearby traces one by one. All the team members did their work in an orderly manner while waiting for dawn. Every minute and every second of waiting for dawn was torture. After tidying up, they did not go back to sleep. Instead, they sat on the wet ground with their backs against each other and closed their eyes to rest. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still dark. They could take a short break before setting off again. At 4:50 a.m., a trail of smoke finally appeared at the end of the sky. The faint morning light enveloped the entire land. "Let's go." As Xia Jinyuan's cold voice rang out, everyone got ready to set off. They headed to the area designated by Xia Jinyuan to look for Yi Qian, who had lost contact with them. Although the rain in the mountains had stopped, the rain-soaked leaves attracted another heavy rain. To the Special Forces soldiers who were walking in the forest, they were already drenched anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to be drenched again. The search area was a little large, so everyone had to look at their feet clearly. Once they found that the soil was loose, they would immediately retreat. Therefore, every step they took was especially cautious to prevent any accidents from happening. There are no footprints. Qing Niao didn't walk in this area. "I don't have it here." No. They didn't miss any of the routes leading to their campsite. They were afraid that Qing Niao would turn back and look for them. Along the way, they kept an eye out for footprints. There was nothing wrong with searching carefully. "Keep going." Li Jingyan, who was walking in front, raised his voice. His cold voice reached everyone's ears, and it had the effect of raising everyone's spirits. If there were no footprints, they would immediately continue on their way. There was no need to waste time. Xia Jinyuan looked at the sky, which had already turned bright. The darkness in his eyes seemed to have absorbed the darkness of the night into his eyes. It was so dark that it seemed to have lost its luster. There was only endless darkness in his eyes, which made people's hearts jump. "Qing Niao will be fine. Don't worry." G3, who was walking beside him, said softly, "Although Qing Niao is a female soldier, she is very cautious. She knows when to be ruthless, so she will definitely be ruthless." Chapter 27-29. G3 had worked with Yi Qian several times, so he knew a little about Yi Qian. She's ruthless, but she doesn't rely on her ruthlessness. She knows how to protect herself, and she knows how to plan her escape route. Q King, your girl is not just ordinarily powerful. She's so powerful that all of our comrades admire her. With the addition of Qing Niao to the Snowfield Brigade, the atmosphere in the team was no longer dull, and the training was no longer boring. How could something happen to such a good comrade? Absolutely nothing would happen to her. Xia Jinyuan's thin lips were pursed tightly. Everyone's communication has been restored. We even had a satellite video call with Major General Yang. Only Qing Niao. So far, there's no news from her side. I'm worried that she might be injured. It was hard to guarantee whether she was injured or not. G3 was speechless. After a while, he patted Xia Jinyuan's shoulder, and his footsteps were heavy. The team members who walked through the forest had heavy hearts. No one spoke. Qing Niao didn't return to the team, so they didn't even have the mood to speak. An hour later, they passed by the rock where Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan had separated last night. After walking down a few hundred meters, they could clearly see a row of bear paw prints. The team members' eyes lit up when they saw the bear paw prints. "Let's go. Follow the footprints." Sparrow Hawk, who was in charge of searching for details, waved his arm. Then, like a king in the mountains, he rushed down. His comrades followed closely behind. The footsteps came and went, but they were all heading towards the area Xia Jinyuan had predicted. Q King's prediction was right. I really admire him. Behind them, Big Shark and the other water demons turned off their communication channels and whispered to each other. Their journey was really right. Qing Niao and the others are comrades in the same brigade, after all. They already have a tacit understanding with each other. If it were the devil, it would be the same. Just like last time, When a few recruits went underwater and lost contact, we were all anxious. He was the only one who divided the underwater area and led us directly to the deserted island to search. It's not easy to be a team leader. They will always know more than us. Otherwise, they won't be able to convince the others. Before the water ghosts could finish their conversation, the voices of their comrades from the Snowfield Brigade came from their earpieces. There's a small area in front of us. Come over quickly. A piece of news that made all the water ghosts' expressions change came over. How could they still communicate with each other? They immediately turned on their earpieces and ran forward with their backpacks. Take a detour from here. Be careful. The special forces of the Snowfield Brigade had already started to descend. Li Jinyan and Xia Jinyuan were at the front of the group. The two of them were practically sliding down with their buttocks. From their backs and movements, it was clear that the collapse had made the two of them anxious. Young Sparrow Hawk also slid down. As he slid down, he raised his head and looked at the collapsed area, which was about 10 square meters in size. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan had already started searching. They needed to determine whether Yi Qian was buried in the collapsed area by the footsteps nearby. This was something that no one could guarantee. They had to search first before making a judgment. There are footprints here. Xia Jinyuan's voice broke the silence. As his voice fell, the air became lively, and the hostility on the special forces' faces was swept away. The comrades who were in charge of the carpet search all ran towards him. Even if the branches hit their faces, it didn't stop them from running over. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.